Chapter 1230. Before he woke up, Duan Lingtian did not forget to comprehend and improve his fused profundity and sword profundity while he was cultivating. Naturally, he was annoyed that he was suddenly interrupted. Therefore, the moment he woke up and opened his eyes, Duan Lingtian's face turned completely gloomy. "Get out here!" A loud voice resonated from outside the cottage door that was kicked open. The voice was filled with impatience. A cold gleam flashed in Duan Lingtian's eyes. He who was sitting cross-legged in the air slowly descended and stood on the ground. Then, he walked out of the cottage slowly. After he came out, Duan Lingtian saw a person standing outside the cottage with just a glance. It was a muscular man with a ferocious and ugly face. The muscular man had a pair of triangular eyes that were staring at him with a cold gleam. "Boy, I really admire you. A mere first-level void interpretation martial artist actually dares to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers?" The ugly muscular man's words were filled with sarcasm. "Huh." Upon hearing the muscular man's words, Duan Lingtian frowned. Not many people knew that he was a first-level void interpretation martial artist. In this godforsaken place, only 2 people knew about it. For a moment, Duan Lingtian looked around and noticed that most of the people in the cottage had walked out and were watching him. Soon after, Duan Lingtian recognized 2 people from the crowd. They were the 2 third-level martial monarchs that Xiao Zhong had brought along with him. They were also the only 2 people who knew about his background. One of them was looking at him with pity. The other person, on the other hand, was looking at him with a sneer. "Did you instigate this guy to look for trouble with me?" Duan Lingtian asked in a deep voice as he stared at the muscular man coldly. There was no need for him to guess. He knew the reason the muscular man looked for him was because someone had revealed his background. Moreover, it was done intentionally. "So what if I did?" The person who was looking at Duan Lingtian, with a mocking smile on his face, generously admitted to it when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. "Duan Lingtian, the cottage here is already filled with people. This brother has just arrived and doesn't have a place to stay. No matter what, it should be you, a void interpretation stage martial artist, who should give up the cottage." As he spoke, the mocking smile on his face deepened. He especially emphasized the words void interpretation stage martial artist. "Kid, since I've broken through to the martial monarch stage, I've never made a move against a void interpretation stage martial artist. Today, I'll properly taste the feeling of crushing an ant to death with a single finger." The ugly brawny man slowly grinned, and a smile that was uglier than crying appeared on his hideous face. At the same time, he took a step forward towards Duan Lingtian. Boom! At that moment, the origin energy on his body seemed to have transformed into a milky white flame that soared up and emitted a majestic aura. It caused the surrounding air to vibrate and set off a series of faint air explosions. As 3,000 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons appeared above the brawny man's head, his palms swept out and enveloped Duan Lingtian fiercely like a fan. He used his origin energy to mobilize the heaven and earth energy to gather 3,000 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons. It was the symbol of the second-level martial monarch stage. He's going to die. He's only at the first-level void interpretation stage, yet he still dares to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers? Who will die if he doesn't? The spectators thought to themselves as their hearts jolted. Above the void, 2 elderly figures stood there. When they saw the brawny man attacking Duan Lingtian, one of the old men said to the other, "Xiao Zhong, it seems like he won't be able to last until the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers in 3 months." The other old man was Xiao Zhong, the person who brought Duan Lingtian here 3 months ago. Upon hearing the former's words, Xiao Zhong said nonchalantly, "This is his own choice." Then, the 2 old men lost interest and even retracted their gazes. In their opinion, everything that happened next was without a doubt. Duan Lingtian would definitely be killed by the brawny man, who had a cultivation base at the second-level martial monarch stage. Bang! In the next moment, a deafening loud sound reverberated in the air. The gazes of the 2 old men once again extended outwards, overlooking the area below. Their eyes froze almost at the same time, and a horrified expression appeared on their faces at the same time. The scene in front of them was completely out of their expectations. In their opinion, the person who should have died did not die, but the person who should not have died had died. To be more precise, he had turned into a bloody mist and died without a burial place. Idiot! As the ugly brawny man turned into a bloody mist, Duan Lingtian stood on the spot and spoke in a calm and indifferent tone. At this moment everyone present saw it. Although the brawny man had exploded into a bloody mist, and was only a foot away from the purple-clad young man, there was not a single trace of blood on the purple-clad young man's body. He's a void interpretation stage martial artist? You must be kidding. A second-level martial monarch stage martial artist did not even have time to react before he was killed by him. Did you see his movements clearly? I only saw a fleeting afterimage. The scene was in an uproar. The group of people looked at Duan Lingtian in a different light. There was a hint of reverence in their eyes. How's this possible? The third-level martial monarch stage martial artist who betrayed Duan Lingtian had a horrified expression. He could not believe what he had just seen was real. 3 months ago, the person who displayed a cultivation base at the first-level void interpretation in front of him had killed a second-level martial monarch stage martial artist in just a second? Moreover, the person's movements were so fast that even he could not catch a glimpse of it. Soon after, the third-level martial monarch stage martial artist's eyes narrowed. Before he could react, a figure had already appeared in front of him. It was a familiar figure. Duan! He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he could not finish his sentence in the end. This was because Duan Lingtian had killed him in a flash. In just a blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian had become the god of slaughter in the eyes of everyone present. All of them looked at him with dread in their eyes. Fortunately, I didn't scheme against him like that idiot did. The other person who came with Duan Lingtian earlier secretly gasped. At the same time, he felt a little relieved in his heart. It was precisely this fellow who was just killed that spread false news everywhere, saying that this violet-clothed young man was a first-level void interpretation stage martial artist. He probably never would have imagined even in his dreams that not only did he cause the death of another, he even caused his own death. If such a powerhouse is only a first-level void interpretation stage martial artist, doesn't that mean I'm not even a void-prying stage martial artist? With his strength he shouldn't be here at all. The group of people discussed animatedly. Their eyes were filled with dread when they looked at Duan Lingtian. These people either came earlier than Duan Lingtian, or later than Duan Lingtian. However, they had one thing in common. All of them were martial artists below the 4th-level martial monarch stage. Xiao Zhong, are you sure he's a void interpretation stage martial artist? High up in the sky, an old man in a green robe asked Xiao Zhong with a strange expression on his face. How's that possible? Xiao Zhong ignored the green-robed old man. His eyes were filled with shock and disbelief when they landed on the purple-clad figure. 3 months ago, he had witnessed the purple-clad young man's cultivation base at the first-level void interpretation stage with his own eyes. It could not be fake. However, the purple-clad young man's strength was not inferior to the 5th or 6th level martial monarch stage. He had also witnessed it with his own eyes. It could not be fake. It was precisely because of this that he could not figure it out. What exactly was the reason that allowed a first-level void interpretation stage martial artist to possess such a terrifying strength after 3 months? Duan Lingtian. Suddenly, a voice transmission entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Upon hearing the voice, Duan Lingtian immediately looked at the source of the voice. Soon after, he noticed that the person who communicated with him through voice transmission was the other person who had followed Xiao Zhong to this place that day. What's the matter? Duan Lingtian asked nonchalantly through voice transmission. Duan Lingtian, with your strength, you're completely capable of defeating the people in the pavilion behind the staircase and occupying that pavilion for yourself. The environment there is much better than here. A voice transmission sounded out once more to remind Duan Lingtian. Pavilion. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian immediately looked at the other end of the stairs that was even higher. There was another stone platform there, and there was an exquisite pavilion standing on the stone platform. When he first arrived, he had already seen the pavilion. At that time, he only thought that it was the residence of Qiao Zhong and another disciple of Ling Xianpeake's Emperor Wu. He did not think much of it. Now someone was telling him that he could defeat the people in the pavilion and take it for himself? From the very beginning we were wrong. That pavilion was also a residence for us to live in. However, only the strongest person among us is qualified to stay there. The person who reminded Duan Lingtian seemed to have guessed Duan Lingtian's thoughts and continued to speak through voice transmission. Although Duan Lingtian did not mobilize the heaven and earth energy to condense the heaven and earth phenomenon in the two attacks earlier, he could tell that the person in front of him was very strong. However, he could see that Duan Lingtian's strength was not something the person who occupied the pavilion could compare to. No matter how strong that person was, he was only at the third-level martial monarch stage. That person definitely did not have the ability to kill the two people who were killed by Duan Lingtian in just one move. If you really think that it's dirty, you can change your living environment. At this moment, Qiao Zhong's words seemed to echo in Duan Lingtian's ears. That day, Duan Lingtian was still puzzled about why Qiao Zhong would say such a ridiculous thing. Now he understood. Looks like there's going to be a show to watch. That fellow has occupied that pavilion for 2 months. It's time for him to move his nest. Many people noticed that Duan Lingtian was looking at the pavilion on the stone platform behind the stairs. They could guess what Duan Lingtian wanted to do, and they were excited and filled with anticipation. Then, all eyes fell on Duan Lingtian. "You're the one who killed my brother?" A cold voice descended from the sky, startling everyone and attracting everyone's attention. High up in the sky, there were 3 figures descending from the sky. Chapter 12:31. Duan Lingtian calmly glanced at the green-robed middle-aged man who descended from the sky with 2 people behind him and asked nonchalantly, "Your brother is one of those 2 fellows just now?" Ever since he came to Ling Xianpeake, he had only killed 2 people, and they were the 2 people just now. "My brother is Lu Yi, the disciple of Ling Xianpeake's Emperor Wu," the green-robed middle-aged man said coldly. His eyes gleamed with a ferocious gleam, as if he was going to devour someone. Waves of terrifying killing intent faintly radiated from his body, causing many people present to feel terrified. Emperor Wu's disciple. Duan Lingtian killed Emperor Wu's disciple? The moment the green-robed middle-aged man spoke, the entire place burst into an uproar. At once, everyone's eyes fell on Duan Lingtian at the same time. Their faces were filled with shock. He killed Emperor Wu's disciple? The third-level martial monarch stage martial artist who followed Duan Lingtian here with Qiao Zhong 3 months ago looked at Duan Lingtian in a daze. He clearly remembered the scene from 3 months ago. At that time, Duan Lingtian indeed only displayed the cultivation base of the first-level void interpretation. This could not be faked. Today, 3 months later, Duan Lingtian killed a second-level martial monarch stage martial artist and a third-level martial monarch stage martial artist. This already shocked him to the core. He could not figure out how Duan Lingtian's improvement could be so exaggerated. Now, someone came with ill intentions and said that Duan Lingtian had killed his brother, the disciple of Ling Xianpeake's Emperor Wu. He must have mistaken me for someone else, he thought to himself. Many people present had the same thought as him, including Qiao Zhong and the old man beside him. "Lu Yi, Emperor Wu's disciple?" Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows. A figure immediately appeared in his mind. "Are you talking about that bandit leader?" "Bandit leader?" As soon as Duan Lingtian said this, Qiao Zhong and the old man beside him looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Lu Yi, disciple of Emperor Wu of Ling Xianpeake. His favorite thing to do was to bring a few of Emperor Wu's disciples outside to act as bandits and rob the area around Ling Xianpeake. Now when Duan Lingtian said the words bandit leader, they vaguely realized that it was very likely that Duan Lingtian had really killed Lu Yi. "It really is you." The light in the eyes of the green-robed middle-aged man grew even brighter. Taking a step forward, the yuan power on his body surged, transforming into a milky white flame that soared into the sky. His aura was like a rainbow. Bang! He took a step forward, and the ground of the entire stone platform cracked. Hideous cracks spread in all directions, as if they had turned into a giant spider web. One could see how furious he was at that moment. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the green-robed middle-aged man took a step forward and was about to attack him. However, a ghostly figure stood in the way of the green-robed middle-aged man. The appearance of this figure was out of everyone's expectations. It's him. Duan Lingtian recognized the figure in front of him at a glance. It was Qiao Zhong, the disciple of Ling Xianpeak's Emperor Wu who had brought him here previously. Qiao Zhong, what do you mean by this? The green-robed middle-aged man's face was gloomy as he said sternly, "You better stay out of today's matter." Lu Zhong. Qiao Zhong glanced at the green-robed middle-aged man indifferently. "I don't care if your brother died in his hands or not. He's with me now, so he's someone I have to protect. Before the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers begins, I won't let anything happen to him." Qiao Zhong's eyes gleamed when he reached the end of his sentence. "Qiao Zhong, don't forget that you're just a loser to me," Lu Zhong sneered. As the saying went, where there are people there will be fights. It was the same in Lingxian Peak. In Lingxian Peak, there were 3 direct disciples of Spirit Profound Emperor Wu under his command. The eldest disciple usually cultivated beside Spirit Profound Emperor Wu. Just like Spirit Profound Emperor Wu, they were elusive. The entire Lingxian Peak was usually managed by the second and third disciples. As time passed, it was inevitable that there would be some friction between the two. This also caused the disciples and followers of Emperor Wu to fight against each other, forming 2 camps. Lu Zhong was not only one of the top 3 direct disciples of Emperor Wu in Lingxian Peak, but he was also part of the camp of Emperor Wu's second direct disciple. Because of his strength, he was highly valued by Emperor Wu's second direct disciple. Qiao Zhong was part of the camp of Emperor Wu's third direct disciple. Because the 2 of them were in different camps, they were like fire and water. Today, Lu Zhong wanted to take Duan Lingtian away, under Qiao Zhong's nose. Naturally, Qiao Zhong would not let him succeed. Whoosh! As Lu Zhong laughed mockingly, a gust of wind blew past. A figure appeared next to Qiao Zhong. It was the old man who was with Qiao Zhong earlier. He was also the disciple of Ling Xianpeak's Emperor Wu who was supervising the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers. This disciple of Emperor Wu was in the same camp as Qiao Zhong. Lu Zhong, if you're confident that you can defeat the 2 of us together, you can attack us. Qiao Zhong said nonchalantly. His words were filled with provocation. Lu Zhong's face darkened. He really did not have much confidence in fighting the 2 martial emperor's disciples in front of him alone. Although his strength could be ranked in the top 3 among the group of Emperor Wu's disciples in Lingxian Peak, he was on par with the 2 people in front of him. In a one-on-one battle, he could defeat any one of the 2 people in front of him. However, if the 2 people in front of him attacked together, he knew that he was no match for them. As for the 2 people he brought with him, they were only Emperor Wu's followers. They could only be cannon fodder in the face of the 2 disciples of Emperor Wu. They would not be of any help to him at all. Qiao Zhong, are you trying to outnumber us? Lu Zhong's eyes gleamed coldly. He had already decided to leave to call for help. Outnumber us? Qiao Zhong seemed to have guessed Lu Zhong's thoughts. He looked at Lu Zhong deeply. Lu Zhong, if I were you, I wouldn't be so stupid as to call for help. Don't forget that the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers was set by Emperor Wu. It's also Lord Emperor Wu's order for us to protect the people who are participating in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers. However, I'd like to see what will happen to you if you disobey Lord Emperor Wu's order. At that time, I hope that your master will be willing to plead for you. Qiao Zhong's face was filled with mockery when he reached the end of his sentence. You! Lu Zhong was enraged by Qiao Zhong's words. However, he suppressed his anger in the end. After Qiao Zhong's reminder, he calmed down. I'll let you live for another 3 months. I hope you'll be able to pass the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers in 3 months. At that time, I'll kill you with my own hands to avenge my brother. Lu Zhong no longer bothered with Qiao Zhong. Instead, he glared coldly at Duan Lingtian and threatened him fiercely. After he finished speaking, he did not wait for Duan Lingtian's reply and left hastily with the 2 disciples of Emperor Wu behind him. They came and went like the wind, as though they had never been there before. From the beginning until the end, Duan Lingtian had a calm expression on his face. His mood was not affected by Lu Zhong's threat at all. In fact, he did not take Lu Zhong seriously at all. Duan Lingtian, did you really kill Lu Yi? Soon after, Qiao Zhong looked at Duan Lingtian and asked with a complicated expression. I think so. Duan Lingtian shrugged and said with an indifferent expression. He did not know if that person was Lu Yi or not. However, he remembered that after he killed that person, the people around him seemed to have addressed him as senior brother Lu. I think so. When they heard Duan Lingtian's words, everyone, including Qiao Zhong and the old man next to him, was speechless. 3 months ago, I misjudged you. You shouldn't have stayed here. However, since you've offended Lu Zhong, you can continue to stay here, Qiao Zhong said with a complicated expression. As for that pavilion, you can stay there. As Qiao Zhong spoke, he looked at the pavilion on the stone platform behind the stairs. The pavilion was surrounded by heaven and earth primal qi. A moment later, Qiao Zhong stepped into the air and arrived in front of the pavilion. His mouth moved slightly, but no one knew what he was saying. Soon after, a person flew out of the pavilion. It was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. My lord, isn't this pavilion for those who are able to obtain it? Can I take it that you're abusing your power for personal gain by doing this? Unlike Qiao Zhong, who spoke softly, the middle-aged man deliberately raised his voice. His voice was clearly heard by everyone, including Duan Lingtian. For a moment, most people had a strange expression on their faces. Abusing his power for personal gain? This fellow really dared to say anything. I'm only suggesting that you give up this pavilion. If you're willing, then naturally, everyone will be happy. If you're unwilling to listen to my advice, then fight with him for the ownership of this pavilion. Qiao Zhong also raised his voice and turned to look at Duan Lingtian at the same time. As everyone's eyes fell on Duan Lingtian became the center of attention. The middle-aged man who came out of the pavilion also looked at Duan Lingtian. Although I don't know what relationship you have with this sir to be able to make him ask me to give up this pavilion. If you want to live in this pavilion, you'll have to defeat me or even kill me first. The middle-aged man stepped into the air and appeared in front of Duan Lingtian in just a blink of an eye. He looked down at Duan Lingtian and said in a deep voice. Upon hearing the middle-aged man's words and seeing his stance, the people present on the scene had a strange expression on their faces. The ignorant are fearless. The same thought popped up in their minds at the same time. Many people even looked at the middle-aged man with pity on their faces. At this moment, they were almost certain that Duan Lingtian had indeed killed one of Emperor Wu's disciples from Lingxian Peak. Even his brother had come to kill him. It was unlikely that this matter was fake. However, at this moment, they were faced with Duan Lingtian, who had the ability to kill Emperor Wu's disciple. The middle-aged man who walked out of the pavilion was one of the best among the third-level martial monarch stage martial artists. He openly challenged him because he did not know his strength or his past deeds. Although there were many people present on the scene, none of them warned the middle-aged man. Perhaps, they were dissatisfied with the middle-aged man for staying in such a good place for so long and wanted to see him make a fool of himself. I don't like people standing on top of me. Chapter 1232. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, a five-colored energy rose from his body and transformed into a gigantic hand above the middle-aged man's head in just a blink of an eye. Rumble. When the gigantic hand landed, the air vibrated and produced a sound that sounded like an earthquake. In an instant, before the middle-aged man could even react, he was enveloped by the gigantic hand and was pressed against the ground. Bang! A loud sound reverberated in the air as the gigantic hand landed on the ground and left a huge palm print on the stone platform before it disappeared without a trace. Barf! Meanwhile, the middle-aged man was slammed into the ground of the stone platform. He was severely injured and only moved after a long time. When he moved, he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with blood clots. Subsequently, he looked at the purple figure nearby with fear on his face and fainted immediately. Silence. The scene was dead silent. After glancing at the unconscious middle-aged man, Duan Lingtian moved and leaped up the stone platform behind the stairs and entered the pavilion in just a blink of an eye. Apart from Qiao Zhong and the other Emperor Wu's disciple, nobody could see Duan Lingtian's movements clearly. His ability is not inferior to ours. Qiao Zhong and the other Emperor Wu's disciple looked at each other and spoke in unison through voice transmission. Their words and actions were in sync. As for the remaining group of people, while they were shocked by Duan Lingtian's speed, they looked at the unconscious middle-aged man in unison. A hint of schadenfreude could be seen on their faces. Qiao Zhong, with his ability, it's certain that he'll become Emperor Wu's disciple in 3 months. Why don't you seize this opportunity to rope him into our camp? The other Emperor Wu's disciple asked curiously when he arrived next to Qiao Zhong. Are you afraid that he'll be roped in by that camp? Qiao Zhong smiled. Realization dawned on Qiao Zhong. With Lu Zhong's enmity toward Duan Lingtian, it was impossible for Lu Zhong to let Duan Lingtian join their camp. When he's on the opposite side of that camp, we'll make an appearance and ask him to join us. At that time he'll be grateful to us. Qiao Zhong said. You really are an old fox. The former could not help but sigh. After that, he seemed to have thought of something and asked curiously, by the way, do you know why he only revealed his cultivation base at the first level void interpretation 3 months ago? I'm guessing that he used some sort of secret technique to hide his true cultivation level. Qiao Zhong said solemnly. There's such a secret technique? The former had a strange look in his eyes. If there really is such a secret technique, it doesn't seem to have any other use other than pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, right? It's enough to play the pig to eat the tiger. Qiao Zhong sighed. Don't forget, before this, even we were fooled by him. The interior of the exquisite and spacious pavilion was dazzling. Compared to the cottage Duan Lingtian had lived in before, it was like 2 completely different worlds. However, Duan Lingtian did not care about this. After he entered the pavilion, he sat on the soft couch and prepared to start cultivating again. I can't believe that 3 months have already passed. 3 months later, Lingxian Peak's Emperor Wu's disciple and follower selection will begin. At that time, I'll definitely amaze the world and attract the attention of that powerhouse, Emperor Wu. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. He did not forget his purpose of coming here. The most important thing now is to continue improving my strength. Only with a powerful strength can I sweep away all obstacles and attract the attention of that powerhouse, Emperor Wu. Duan Lingtian's heart jolted as he closed his eyes and began to cultivate. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique. While he was cultivating, he also began to comprehend the fused profundity and sword profundity in his own way. Time passed by quietly, and Duan Lingtian's strength was improving every second. A month later, in the north of Cloud Continent, there were 3 towering snow peaks in an area that was covered in snow all year round. In the middle of the 3 snow peaks was an ice lake that was constantly emitting fog. Even though the temperature was terrifyingly low, the water in the ice lake was not frozen. It was only emitting bone-chilling cold air. It was extremely unique. The ice lake had a nice name, Yuhan Lake. With Yuhan Lake as the center, there was another name for the place surrounded by the 3 towering snow peaks. Yuhan Valley. Yuhan Valley was also the cultivation place of Emperor Wu on Cloud Continent. That Emperor Wu was known as Yuhan, and was known as Yuhan Emperor Wu. Speaking of Yuhan Emperor Wu, she was definitely the strongest female powerhouse on Cloud Continent. Her strength could be ranked in the top 3 among the 9 known Emperor Wu on Cloud Continent. Because of this, when Yuhan Valley released the news that Yuhan Lake was going to hold the Emperor Wu's disciple and follower selection, half a year ago, many female martial artists came from all over. The reason why there were only female martial artists was that Yuhan Valley did not accept male disciples and followers. In Yuhan Valley, there were only female martial artists, including Yuhan Emperor Wu. There was no exception. Today there were two uninvited guests in the sky above Yuhan Valley. They were two women, young women. One of the ladies was wearing a light purple dress. She was extremely beautiful and had an invisible charm that seemed to be able to turn everyone upside down. The other woman wore light yellow clothes, and her appearance was not inferior to the former. However, unlike the former, her peerless appearance seemed to be mixed with some youthfulness. If the lady in front was described as a passionate red rose, then the woman behind him was a pure and unsullied snow lotus who had emerged from the mud. The two ladies were equally beautiful, but they each had their own unique features. Fortunately, we came here early in the morning. Otherwise, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to make it in time for the Emperor Wu's disciple and follower selection. The lady in the light purple dress mumbled. Yes, I didn't expect Yuhan Valley to hold the Emperor Wu's disciple and follower selection a year in advance. The other lady nodded lightly. She then frowned as if she was worried. I wonder if we can become Emperor Wu's follower with our current abilities. Kerr, you must believe in your own abilities. The lady in the purple dress comforted her softly. Sister Fei-er, I miss young master. When do you think we can see young master? The lady who was called Kerr said in a trembling voice. We'll go back to look for the bad guy after we've avenged master and senior sister. The lady in the purple dress trembled slightly. Her voice sounded a little off, and she only recovered after a while. Kerr, let's go in. The two ladies were Kerr and Li Fei. They were Duan Lingtian's two fiancés who had not seen each other for many years. After they had escaped from the Yin Yang sect, they headed north and headed straight for Yuhan Valley. To their surprise, they heard that Yuhan Valley would be holding the Emperor Wu's disciple and follower selection 2 months later, when they arrived at the northern region of the Inner Land. Compared to what they had heard before, it was a full year earlier. As Kuer and Li Fei continued to fly into Yuhan Valley, they were soon stopped by a lady in blue. She asked expressionlessly, "Are you guys here to join the selection of the martial emperor's disciples and followers that will be held in Yuhan Valley 2 months later?" Yes. The two ladies nodded. "Follow me." The lady in blue called out to Kerr and Li Fei and brought them into Yuhan Valley. After a while, Kerr and Li Fei were brought to an independent valley. There were many wooden houses built in the valley. The wooden houses were covered in snow, as if they were covered in a layer of silver. There are 2 empty wooden houses. You can stay in them. If you're any later, you'll have to snatch other people's wooden houses. The lady in blue said expressionlessly, "Killing is allowed in this place. The strong ones are respected. You're on your own." The lady in blue left as soon as she finished speaking. Only Kerr and Li Fei were left. They looked at each other and saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. "Kerr, let's go in." Li Fei called out to Kerr, and the two of them were about to enter the 2 ownerless wooden houses that were next to each other. Wait! Just as the 2 ladies were about to enter the ownerless wooden houses, a sudden voice stopped them. Then, a lady walked out of the other wooden house. She was the one who had spoken earlier. The lady was limping as she walked with a limp. Moreover, she was blind in one eye and had a hideous scar on her face. It looked like a centipede that was lying there. She looked extremely scary. Seeing this woman, Li Fei was still okay and kept calm. However, Kerr could not help but frown slightly. The lady's appearance frightened her. Such a crippled and ugly woman, compared to Li Fei and Kuer, who were as beautiful as flowers and jade, were simply 2 extremes, a difference of thousands of miles. These 2 girls are going to be in trouble. Then, many ladies walked out of the other wooden houses. They looked at Li Fei and Kerr with pity in their eyes. So far, 8 of them have died. Including them, there are 10 of them. A lady sighed. Although the 8 who died earlier were beautiful, they were not as good as them. These 2 girls are going to be in a worse state. Another lady shook her head. The ladies who walked out of the wooden houses had one thing in common, and that was they were not beautiful. "What are you trying to do?" Seeing the ugly woman walking towards the 2 of them, Li Fei's face sank as she shouted in a delicate voice. "If there's an afterlife, remember not to be so good-looking. A femme fatale." The ugly lady looked at Li Fei and Kerr with a ruthless gaze, as if she was looking at 2 dead people. "So, you're an ugly freak, who can't stand other people being good-looking. Li Fei sneered when she heard the ugly lady's words. At the same time, she took out her spirit weapon and was ready to attack. Chapter 1233. A silhouette of an ancient black dragon, and 1,000 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons appeared above the hideous lady's head. She was able to trigger the heaven and earth energy to form such a heaven and earth phenomenon with only her origin energy. That was the mark of an 8th level martial monarch martial artist. As the hideous lady's multicolored energy rose again, Li Fei and Kerr knew that she was communicating with the profundity that she had comprehended. Wait! Li Fei stopped her with a grave expression. What? Do you have something to say before you die? The hideous lady asked in a deep voice. Her origin energy and profundity were ready to be unleashed. She was ready to kill Li Fei and Kerr anytime. You want to kill us just because we're prettier than you? Li Fei asked after taking a deep breath. It's not that you're prettier than me. Women who look like demons deserve to die. The hideous lady said in a deep voice. What if the one who looks good is Emperor Wu of Yuhan? What if it's Emperor Wu's direct disciple or Emperor Wu's disciple in Yuhan Valley? With your ability, I'm afraid you're only a threat to Emperor Wu's disciple in Yuhan Valley. Li Fei continued. I'll admit that women who look like demons are more powerful than me. Those who are weaker than me won't be able to live. The hideous lady continued with her fallacious logic. At the same time, she quickened her pace and went straight for Li Fei and Kerr. Li Fei's expression changed drastically. She just realized that the hideous lady before her was a crazy woman with a twisted mind. She hurriedly said to Kerr, Kerr, you go first. I'll stop her. As she spoke, Li Fei's figure moved, and she extended her hand to meet the ugly woman. Although she knew that she was no match for the hideous lady, she still wanted to fight for Kerr's life. Bastard, we'll meet again in the next life. While facing the ugly woman, Li Fei was completely disheartened. A purple figure appeared in her mind. It was a tall, handsome young man in purple clothes. Sister Fei, Kerr shouted, and at the same time, she also moved to meet the ugly woman. The 3-foot-long sword that appeared in her hand was instantly covered with a layer of ice. It was entwined with a bone-chilling sword aura as it swept towards the ugly woman. A sword came from the west, as if it had the help of the gods. Although Li Fei asked her to leave, how could she leave just like that? If something really happened to Li Fei, even if she was lucky enough to survive, she would be depressed for the rest of her life. Just thinking about that kind of life made her afraid. Young master, if there is a next life, Kerr would still be willing to be a little girl by your side. Kerr's eyes were brimming with tears as she wielded the 3-foot-long sword that exuded an extremely cold aura. The same figure as the one in Li Fei's mind appeared in her mind. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. In the face of Li Fei and Kerr's attacks, the ugly woman sneered disdainfully. She did not even bother to use her spirit weapon as she swept her palm across. At the same time, 3 silhouettes of ancient black dragons appeared in the void above her head as she attacked. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced towards Li Fei and Kerr in an imposing manner. Compared to the 3 silhouettes of ancient black dragons, the silhouettes of ancient black dragons, and thousands of ancient horned dragons that appeared in the void above Li Fei and Kerr's heads seemed exceptionally small. What a pity! At that moment, many ladies who came out of the wooden houses to watch the show closed their eyes, as they could not bear to watch. It was as if they could already foresee the scene of 2 peerless beauties being brutally killed. Boom! Ah! As a deafening loud sound reverberated, waves of rolling airwaves spread in all directions. A shrill scream followed, piercing everyone's eardrums. Something's not right. At that moment, many ladies felt that something was amiss. This voice. When they opened their eyes again or regained their senses, they realized that there was a beautiful figure in front of the 2 unharmed beauties, protecting them behind her. On the other hand, the ugly woman was sent flying. She crashed heavily on the mountain wall that was covered in snow, leaving a human-shaped mark on it. Barf! The ugly woman spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was pale as she looked at the lady who was protecting Li Fei and Kerr. She said in a deep voice, "Isn't killing prohibited here? Are you trying to protect these 2 lowly servants for personal reasons?" Slap! The crisp sound of a slap rang out. It was the woman who was standing in front of Li Fei and Ko-er. She disappeared into thin air and reappeared in front of the ugly woman. She raised her hand and gave her a slap. It's not up to you to tell me what to do. The lady who was standing in front of the ugly woman was a delicate lady. She was dressed in white and looked like she was one with the ice and snow. Although she looked delicate, there was a terrifying power hidden in her body. Otherwise, the ugly woman would not have been defeated by her. At that moment, the ugly woman did not dare to say anything. Although her ability was great, she would at most become a martial emperor's follower in the Yuhan Valley selection of martial emperor's disciples and followers 2 months later. She knew that very well. However, the lady in front of her was one of Emperor Wu's disciples in Yuhan Valley. She was far more powerful than the ugly woman. Therefore, although she was unwilling, she did not dare to say anything. 2 lowly servants. I'll let you live for 2 more months. In the selection of Emperor Wu's disciple and follower in 2 months, I'll make you disappear from this world completely. The ugly woman looked viciously at Li Fei and Ko-er as she thought to herself, thank you for saving our lives, sister. At that moment, Ko-er and Li Fei thanked the lady in white. They knew very well that if the lady in white had not helped them, they would not have escaped death today. However, they were filled with doubts. The lady in blue who had brought them in earlier was one of Emperor Wu's disciples in Yuhan Valley and one of Emperor Wu's followers. She had told them from the beginning that killing was prohibited and that only the powerful ones were respected. However, the lady in white who they suspected to be Emperor Wu's disciple in Yuhan Valley had saved them. They found it strange. Why did the lady in white want to save them? Follow me. After glancing at the ugly woman coldly, the lady in white turned to look at Ko-er and Li Fei. She nodded slightly and stepped into the air. Although they did not know where the lady in white was bringing them, Ko-er and Li Fei chose to listen to the lady in white and followed her out of the valley. After Ko-er and Li Fei left, there was a commotion in the valley. Who do you think those 2 girls are? They should be one of Emperor Wu's disciples? Otherwise, why would she save them? I heard that some women don't like men but prefer women. Do you think she's one of them? She saw that those 2 girls were pretty, so now that you mention it, it's possible. As the saying went, 3 women make a show. When a group of women gathered in the valley, they could even turn black into white. At that moment, the ugly woman returned to her wooden house with a grave expression. On the other hand, Li Fei and Ko-er followed the lady in white silently and headed to the other side. Sister, where are you bringing us? Ko-er could not help but ask softly. To see senior sister Sue. The lady in white turned around to look at Ko-er. A rare smile appeared on her face that was as calm as an ancient well. It was a smile that was like the blooming of a green lotus. It was refreshing. Seeing this scene, Ko-er was still fine and only returned a smile. However, there was a flash of surprise in Li Fei's eyes. She realized that the lady in white, who was suspected to be Emperor Wu's disciple in Yuhan Valley, seemed to be very polite to Ko-er. What was the reason? Her heart was filled with doubts. Soon, the lady in white brought Ko-er and Li Fei to the mountainside of one of the snowy peaks around Yuhan Valley. There was a wooden house that was covered in white snow. It was impossible to see the wooden house from afar. They could only see it clearly when they got closer. Senior sister Sue. After the lady in white brought Ko-er and Li Fei over, she greeted the wooden house that was covered in thick snow respectfully. Li Fei and Ko-er's gazes also landed on the wooden house. To be precise, they were looking at the door of the wooden house. They were curious about the person who was about to come out from the house. Ko-er, the lady in white who saved us must be Emperor Wu's disciple in Yuhan Valley. I guess she has to be the direct disciple of Yuhan Valley's Emperor Wu to be treated so respectfully, Li Fei said to Ko-er through voice transmission. Ko-er's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. Before she could reply, the door of the wooden house opened with a creak. At the same time, a beautiful figure walked out slowly from the house. It was an ordinary-looking young lady in green. She looked to be in her early 30s with a cold face. She looked straight at the lady in white when she walked out. What's the matter? The green-clothed lady spoke unhurriedly. Her voice was so cold that it seemed to have come from an extremely cold ice cave. causing Li Fei and Ke Er to involuntarily shiver. Senior apprentice Sister Su, I saw someone using a sword skill similar to the one you used. The lady in white seemed to feel the pressure when facing the lady in green. She took a deep breath and said, "The sword skill that I used?" The lady in green frowned. "It's the sword skill that came with the technique that Emperor Wu passed on to you," the lady in white reminded her. "What?" As the white-clothed woman's voice fell, the green-clothed woman's face could no longer remain calm, and her expression changed completely. "Who?" At the same time, she looked at Li Fei and Ke. "It's her." The lady in white looked at Ke and said to the lady in green, "You show me your sword skill," Yi Futian said. At this moment, the lady in green tried her best to calm herself down and said to Ke. When Ke heard that, she looked at Li Fei. After seeing Li Fei's nod of approval, she moved and displayed the sword skill that she had mastered. "Is your sword skill derived from a technique called Han Bing's Holy Sword Technique?" Chapter 1234. How? How did you know? Ke looked at the lady in green and asked in surprise. Only a handful of people knew the name of her cultivation method, and they were all close to her. But today, someone spoke the name of the cultivation method she cultivated through the sword skill she displayed, which made her feel inexplicably shocked. Whoosh! Facing Ke's surprise, the lady in green did not answer. She raised her hand slightly. In an instant, a sword appeared in her hand. It was a sword that was completely formed by Yuan Li. In the next moment she moved. Whoosh! 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 Accompanied by the sound of the sword, the lady in green's action was exactly the same as Ke's when she performed the sword skill. The sword was also filled with a bone-chilling cold air. Of course, the cold air on the lady in green's sword was even more terrifying. Wherever the sword passed, the air seemed to freeze. When the breeze blew, it turned into a bone-chilling cold wind. How did you know this sword skill? As the lady in green kept her sword, Ke was dumbfounded. The sword skill displayed by the lady in green was exactly the same as the one she practiced. No matter the movement or the charm. Of course, the lady in green's attainment in this sword skill was far better than hers. Where the sword tip points, the world will be frozen. The lady in green did not answer Ke's question. Instead, she suddenly said these words to Ke. Hearing these words, Ke's eyes suddenly shrank. She said with a face full of shock, You also practiced Han Bing's God sword skill?" No one knew these words better than Ke. These were the last words of the general outline of Han Bing's God sword skill, and also the most important words. Once Han Bing's God sword skill was cultivated to the extreme, where the sword tip points, the world will be frozen. Han Bing's God sword skill. Li Fei, who was standing at the side, was puzzled by what had just happened. Now, after hearing Ke's words, she was completely enlightened. The woman in green in front of him actually cultivated the same cultivation method as Ke? That's not right. According to what scoundrel said back then, no matter if it was the art of the sun and moon star that he passed on to me, or the Han Bing God sword technique that he passed on to little sister Ke, there shouldn't be a second person who knows them. Li Fei shook her head. She couldn't figure it out. Now she finally understood why the woman in white had saved her and Ke. It turned out that the woman in white had recognized the sword skill that Ke had cultivated. Scoundrel, you know what? The cultivation method you passed on to little sister Ke saved both my life and hers. Li Fei muttered in her heart. If I'm not wrong, you're practicing the complete Han Bing's God sword technique. The woman in green looked at Ke, her eyes gleaming as she muttered, I can't believe that there's a third person who has cultivated the complete Han Bing's God sword technique on Cloud Continent apart from Master and me. Apart from you, there's another person who has cultivated the Han Bing's God sword technique? Ke was shocked. She was already shocked when she saw another person who had cultivated the Han Bing's God sword technique. However, from what the woman in front of her had just said, there seemed to be a third person who had cultivated the Han Bing's God sword technique. Senior Sister Su's cultivation method was passed down personally by Lord Emperor Wu. It's also the most powerful cultivation method in Yuhan Valley, regardless of the generation of Yuhan Valley Master. he would only pass it down to one person. At this moment, the woman in white standing at the side spoke. As she spoke, she did not forget to look at the woman in green with respect. The person who was passed down the cultivation method is also the future successor of Yuhan Valley, Lord Emperor Wu. Once the woman in white said that, Li Fei looked at the woman in green and could not help but exclaim, You're really Emperor Wu's lineal disciple? Although she had already guessed it, Li Fei was still shocked when it was confirmed. Not only is senior sister Su the lineal disciple of Emperor Wu, but she's also the future successor of Yuhan Valley. Sooner or later, she'll become a powerful person like Emperor Wu. As the woman in white spoke, her eyes were filled with fanatical admiration for the woman in green. Emperor Wu's lineal disciple. Li Fei's words also shocked Kerr. Kerr could not help but look at the woman in green in shock. Your Han Bing's God sword technique was passed down to you by Yuhan Emperor Wu? That's right. The woman in green nodded. The frost on her face that was originally as cold as ice seemed to have melted. Come with me. Master will definitely be very interested in you. Who knows? She might even make an exception and take you in as her lineal disciple. The woman in green said. Lineal disciple. The woman in green's words not only shocked Kerr, but also Li Fei. The woman in green's master was the owner of Yuhan Valley, Yuhan Emperor Wu. Becoming her master's lineal disciple meant that she would become Yuhan Emperor Wu's lineal disciple. I can go with you, but Sister Fei has to go too. Kerr said. Little girl. Senior Sister Su is bringing you to see Lord Emperor Wu. It's your good fortune. Now, you still dare to negotiate with Senior Sister Su? The woman in white who was standing at the side snorted and frowned. If Sister Fei doesn't want to go with me, then I won't go either. Kerr ignored the woman in white and looked at the woman in green stubbornly. Seeing that, Li Fei felt warmth in her heart. She knew that Kerr was fighting for her opportunity. At the same time, Li Fei looked at the woman in green with fear. She was afraid that Kerr would anger her because of that. That would be a loss. Let's go. Surprisingly, the woman in green nodded and agreed to Kerr's condition. At the same time, she stepped into the air and slowed down, intentionally waiting for Kerr and Li Fei. Kerr and Li Fei looked at each other and saw the joy in each other's eyes. Then they followed the woman in green. Along the way, they also found out the full name of the woman in green. Su Rong. Under Su Rong's lead, Kerr and Li Fei arrived at the peak of a snowy peak. The peak of the snowy peak was covered in clouds. From afar it looked like a vast expanse. Through the clouds, they could see a vast stone platform standing there. On the stone platform, there was a palace made entirely of ice. This was a sparkling and translucent palace. It was so beautiful that it looked like a palace that only existed in the heavens. Master. Su Rong led Kerr and Li Fei to the ice palace and bowed respectfully. Almost as soon as Su Rong finished speaking, Kerr and Li Fei did not have time to react before a woman appeared in front of them. It was a young woman. The young woman looked to be in her 30s, but Kerr and Li Fei knew that the woman in front of them was at least 100 years old. The young woman stood in front of them. Her aura was restrained, and she looked just like an ordinary person. Lord Emperor Wu. Facing this ordinary-looking young woman, Kerr and Li Fei did not dare to be negligent. They hurriedly bowed respectfully, as they were filled with excitement. It was their first time seeing a powerhouse like Emperor Wu in their lives. However, from the beginning to the end, the ordinary-looking young lady did not even look at Kerr and Li Fei. She looked at Su Rong and asked indifferently, Rong, why are you looking for me? Master, she has cultivated the complete Han Bing's divine sword technique just like us. Su Rong looked at Kerr and said to the young woman, who was Yuhan Emperor Wu. The reason why she said she had cultivated the complete Han Bing's divine sword technique was because the other lineal disciples of Emperor Wu in Yuhan Valley had more or less cultivated the surface of Han Bing's divine sword technique. The incomplete Han Bing's divine sword technique that they had cultivated was passed down to them by Yuhan Emperor Wu under the pretext that he had kept it a secret. Yuhan Valley's rule was that the complete Han Bing's divine sword technique could only be passed down to one person. It had been that way for generations. As Su Rong spoke, Yuhan Emperor Wu's calm face finally changed. At the same time, her gaze landed on Kaer. Her eyes suddenly became sharp as she asked in a deep voice, "Have you really cultivated the complete Han Bing's God's Sword technique?" Yes. Kerr could not breathe as she looked at Yuhan Emperor Wu, who was looking at her fiercely. Subsequently, under Martial Emperor Yuhan's request, Kuer performed the sword skill that came with Han Bing's divine sword technique. It was a sword skill that could only be performed by those who had cultivated the complete version of Han Bing's divine sword technique. It's really the complete Han Bing's divine sword technique. Yuhan Emperor Wu was shocked. But shouldn't only Yuhan Valley have Han Bing's divine sword technique? Yuhan Valley had been passed down for 3,000 years. In these 3,000 years, there had been many powerful Emperor Wu in Yuhan Valley. They had all become Emperor Wu because they had cultivated Han Bing's divine sword technique. Of course, not everyone could become Emperor Wu by cultivating Han Bing's divine sword technique. It also depended on one's talent. Han Bing's divine sword technique is a cultivation method passed down by our Yuhan Valley's ancestor. According to the handwritten record left behind by our ancestor, she obtained Han Bing's divine sword technique from a martial emperor's tomb. Yuhan Emperor Wu quickly suppressed his shock. He calmed down and pondered seriously. According to her judgment, the tomb of Emperor Wu had been passed down for at least 10,000 years, or even longer. The Emperor Wu who was buried in the tomb was the one who had excavated the tomb. She was a female Emperor Wu, the Ice Emperor Wu. Back then, apart from Han Bing's divine sword technique, our ancestor had also obtained a voice transmission jade slip. The voice transmission jade slip contained the last words of the Ice Emperor Wu. The Ice Emperor Wu was an Emperor Wu who had existed 20,000 years ago. According to the Ice Emperor Wu, the Han Bing's divine sword technique that she had cultivated had only been passed down to one person before she was buried in the tomb. That person was an Emperor Wu who was even more powerful than her. That Emperor Wu was known as Samsara, and was known as Samsara Emperor Wu. According to the Ice Emperor Wu, the cultivation method that Samsara Emperor Wu had cultivated was called Three Lives Samsara Technique. The Three Lives Samsara Technique had the ability to reincarnate. Chapter 1235. The Frost Emperor. Wu knows a little about the Three Lives Rebirth Technique. It's said that the Reincarnation Emperor, Wu, can reincarnate once every 10,000 years. When he entered the Emperor Wu realm, during his third reincarnation, he would be considered to have cultivated the Three Lives Rebirth Technique to its peak. All of this was recorded in the handwritten letter left behind by the Yuhan Valley's ancestor. Looking at the time, it should be the time for the Reincarnation Emperor Wu to reincarnate for his third reincarnation. Once he cultivates to the Emperor Wu realm in this reincarnation, the Three Lives Rebirth Technique will be perfected. The Yuhan Emperor Wu was shocked when he thought of this. The Reincarnation Emperor Wu from 20,000 years ago had gone through 3 reincarnations just to cultivate a cultivation method called the Three Lives Rebirth Technique to its peak. Just how powerful was this set of techniques? One should know that the Reincarnation Emperor Wu could defeat the Frost Emperor Wu who cultivated the Han Bing's divine sword technique in his first reincarnation. One could only imagine how powerful the Reincarnation Emperor Wu was. It seems like the Han Bing's divine sword technique that this little girl is cultivating was passed down to her by the Reincarnation Emperor Wu in his third reincarnation. The Yuhan Emperor Wu looked at Kerr as he speculated in his heart. Kerr, who was being stared at by the Yuhan Emperor Wu, could not help but feel uneasy when she saw that the Yuhan Emperor Wu did not respond after a long time. No matter what, the person standing in front of her was an Emperor Wu, the supreme existence on Cloud Continent. Who passed down the Han Bing's divine sword technique to you? Finally, the Yuhan Emperor Wu regained his senses and asked this question as soon as he opened his mouth. It's young master who passed it down to me. Kerr took a deep breath and said slowly, "Young master?" The Yuhan Emperor Wu raised his eyebrows. "He is the fiancé of my sister Kerr and I." Seeing that Kerr seemed to be a little restrained, Li Fei answered for her. "Fiancé?" Upon hearing this, The cold Emperor Wu's eyes lit up imperceptibly. It seems, the third reincarnation of the reincarnation emperor, Wu hasn't fully matured yet. According to the records left behind by my ancestors in Yuhan Valley, the Frost Emperor Wu mentioned in the voice transmission Jade Slip that she left behind. Apart from being a powerful martial artist, the reincarnation emperor, Wu was also a heaven-defying alchemist. Grade 1 is the limit for an ordinary alchemist. On the other hand, Emperor Wu of the reincarnation cycle blazed a new trail and became a quasi-royal grade alchemist, or even a royal grade alchemist. It's said that the royal grade healing pill refined by the reincarnation emperor, Wu can even revive a dead person and grow flesh and bones. Moreover, the reincarnation emperor Wu has gone through 2 reincarnations. He must have left many good things for his third reincarnation. Greed flashed in the depth of the Yuhan Emperor Wu's eyes as she thought about this. Subsequently, she snapped back to her senses and looked at Kerr. I'd like to take you in as my direct disciple. Are you willing? Although she had no idea why the fiancé of the reincarnation emperor, Wu would come to Yuhan Valley in his third reincarnation, she naturally had to make good use of her since she was here. Reincarnation Emperor Wu, the things that you left for your third reincarnation, after 2 reincarnations are destined to be mine. The Yuhan Emperor Wu thought to himself. I can be your direct disciple. However, you must take Sister Fei, as your direct disciple too. Kerr's eyes lit up when she heard what the Yuhan Emperor Wu said. She then looked at Li Fei who was next to her, and said to the Yuhan Emperor Wu. Su Rong frowned at the side. This ungrateful girl. Never mind that she was talking about conditions in front of her. How dare she talk about conditions in front of her master, the high and mighty Yuhan Emperor Wu? I agree. Su Rong thought that her master would be angry. However, she was surprised to find that not only was her master not angry, she even agreed to Kerr's condition without hesitation. Thank you, Sir Emperor Wu. Kerr's eyes lit up when she heard that. She hurriedly expressed her gratitude. Thank you, Sir Emperor Wu. Li Fei also expressed her gratitude. Are you still calling me Sir Emperor Wu? The Yuhan Emperor Wu smiled faintly and asked meaningfully. Master. Kerr and Li Fei immediately reacted and bowed respectfully to the Yuhan Emperor Wu. Right now they were completely overwhelmed by joy. They were completely unaware that a huge trap was being set up for them and their fiancés. Time flew by like a white steed flitting by a crack. Another month passed just like that. There was only a month left until the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers held by Lingxian Peak. There was a long flight of stairs halfway up the mountain on one side of Lingxian Peak that completely separated the 2 stone platforms. The flight of stairs was like a natural moat that separated the 2 stone platforms into 2 different worlds. There was an exquisite pavilion on the stone platform above. The pavilion was surrounded by heaven and earth origin energy that was almost tangible. The cultivation environment was so good that it was enough to make others envious. On the other hand, the stone platform below had cracks on the ground that looked like a huge spider web. There were also cottages on the platform that were filled with a stench that would not go away for a long time. Whoosh! A figure appeared out of thin air in front of the pavilion. It was a purple figure. It was Duan Lingtian, who had been in closed-door cultivation for another 2 months. There's only a month left, Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. Then he moved and stepped into the air. In the blink of an eye, he had left the place he was at previously. From the beginning until the end, he was not stopped at all. Of course, it was not because Qiao Zhong and the other disciple of Emperor Wu did not know that Duan Lingtian had left. Although they knew, they did not plan to stop Duan Lingtian. Not to mention that they might not be able to stop Duan Lingtian with their strength. However, with Duan Lingtian's strength, since he had decided to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, held by Lingxian Peak, he would definitely not go back on his word. Naturally, Duan Lingtian did not go back on his word. He left temporarily, because he wanted to take a breather. As he stepped into the air, he performed his movement technique, Dragon Soaring 9 Heaven, and his entire body seemed to have transformed into a divine dragon. He circled around Lingxian Peak and headed to the peak at an extremely fast speed. Along the way, Duan Lingtian saw many of Emperor Wu's followers. However, none of them noticed him. Soon, Duan Lingtian arrived at the peak of Lingxian Peak. The peak was completely shrouded in clouds. As soon as he entered, Duan Lingtian heard the clear sound of a sword chime. There's someone else practicing sword here? Duan Lingtian continued to go deeper while he was puzzled. He soon discovered that there was someone practicing sword on the peak of Lingxian Peak. This person did not use his origin energy or profundity when he practiced the sword. He was completely using his spiritual energy to control the spirit sword. It was similar to the Nine Tribulations sword control technique that Qin Yi cultivated. Inscription Master? Duan Lingtian guessed when he discovered that the person was controlling the sword with his spiritual energy. That was why he did not use his spiritual energy to probe the person's cultivation base. The person was an inscription master, so it would be easy for him to discover his spiritual energy probing. It was impolite to probe other people's cultivation base. The person controlling the sword with his spiritual energy was a young man. He was tall and wore a green robe that moved with the wind. He looked elegant and carefree. Since his back was facing Duan Lingtian could not see his face clearly. One had to admit that the young man's attainment in the sword Dao was quite profound. If it was the Duan Lingtian from before, he would definitely admit that he was not as good as him. However, Duan Lingtian could not help but shake his head at this moment. What? You can do better than me? Suddenly, a voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears, and it shocked him to the point he shuddered and completely returned to his senses. He only realized now. The young man who had his back facing him had somehow noticed his presence and was talking to him. When the young man was talking to him, he turned around and revealed his face. It was a young man who looked to be in his 30s. He had dashing eyebrows and bright eyes, and he was handsome. He stood there as though he had transformed into a sharp sword that was ready to soar into the sky at any time. You think you're doing well? Duan Lingtian, who regained his senses, asked in a slightly amused manner. The young man in front of him used his spiritual energy to control the sword. It was far better than the Nine Tribulations sword control technique that he had used in the past. However, it was not worth mentioning to him now. After comprehending the sword Dao comprehension that had accumulated in his mind, his attainment in the sword Dao had improved tremendously. You're all talk and no action, the young man said. Duan Lingtian glanced at the young man nonchalantly. Without wasting any time, a 3-foot-long green sword appeared in his hand. It was his quasi-royal grade spirit sword. Subsequently, he did not split the quasi-royal grade spirit sword into 9. Instead, he used his spiritual energy to control it to fly in the air. It began to circle around him, and its speed became faster and faster. His attainments in the sword Dao that had been raised recently due to his comprehension of the sword Dao was fully displayed. The young man stood to the side, and his gaze gradually changed from the initial disdain. In the end, it was filled with shock. Who is he? There's such a person in Lingxian Peak? The young man muttered softly. Soon, the young man's gaze became a little dull. His mind was completely immersed in Duan Lingtian's movements. To be more precise, he was immersed in the movements of the spirit sword around Duan Lingtian's body. After all, Duan Lingtian did not move at all. He stood there as still as a mountain. The young man's gaze changed from the initial sluggishness to confusion, and then to enlightenment. His expression was changing with every passing moment. You can do that. Amazing. Amazing. As time passed by, the young man could only sigh in admiration at the attainment Duan Lingtian displayed in the sword Dao. He felt ashamed of his inferiority. What's your name? As Duan Lingtian withdrew his spiritual energy, and the spirit sword returned to his hand, the young man could not help but ask curiously. Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian replied calmly. Duan Lingtian, you're Emperor Wu's disciple from Lingxian Peak? The young man's eyes gleamed as he asked. No. Chapter 1236. You're here to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers that will be held in Lingxian Peak a month later? The young man could not help but be surprised when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. With your attainments in the sword Tao, it's only a matter of time before you comprehend the Emperor stage sword concept. I don't think there's a need for you to become a disciple of Spirit Profound Emperor Wu, right? Comprehending the Emperor stage sword profundity was only a matter of time? Duan Lingtian snickered inwardly. He had already comprehended the Emperor stage sword profundity a long time ago. However, he did not point it out. I'm not interested in becoming a disciple of that Spirit Profound Emperor Wu. I'm here to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers in Lingxian Peak, mainly because I want that Spirit Profound Emperor Wu to do me a favor. If I have to become his direct disciple in order to get his help, then I can only force myself to do it. If it's possible, of course, I'm not willing to become his direct disciple. Duan Lingtian finished his sentence in one breath. Force yourself to become Emperor Wu's direct disciple? Duan Lingtian's words made the young man's mouth twitch slightly. In the entire Cloud continent, there were countless martial artists who wanted to become a direct disciple of a powerhouse like Emperor Wu. However, the purple-clad young man before him did not care about it at all. If someone else had said that, he might have mocked them. However, the purple-clad young man before him had the right to say that because of his previous performance. Soon after, the young man looked at Duan Lingtian and asked, "What do you want from Spirit Profound Emperor Wu?" To him, it's just a small favor. But to me, it's extremely important. Duan Lingtian muttered softly. Although he had regained some of his memories in the past few months, he still knew nothing about his identity and origin. That memory seemed to have been completely sealed away. He did not know where he came from, or where he was going. He felt that there was only one reason for him to live, and that was to understand his past. That was all. I see. The young man nodded and continued. As far as I know, Lingxian Peak's Spirit Profound Emperor Wu is extremely picky when it comes to choosing his direct disciples. Over the years, he has only accepted 3 direct disciples. Although your attainments in the Tao of the Sword are high, he might not make an exception and take you as his direct disciple. The young man said to Duan Lingtian. Hearing you say that, it seems like you know quite a bit about Spirit Xian Emperor Wu. You wouldn't be one of the 3 direct disciples of Spirit Xian Emperor Wu, right? Duan Lingtian took a deep look at the young man and asked. In the face of Duan Lingtian's question, the young man only smiled mysteriously and did not answer. Duan Lingtian, I still have something to do, so I'll be leaving first. Also remember that I'm called Yang Hui. Yang Hui. After introducing himself, Yang Hui left. In just a blink of an eye, he disappeared behind the clouds and mist before Duan Lingtian. If you are, then you are. If you aren't, then you aren't. What's there to be so mysterious about? Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows slightly and left the peak of Lingxian Peak as well. He returned to the pavilion where he cultivated earlier and continued to cultivate and comprehend the fused profundity and sword profundity. At the same time, south of the inner land of Cloud Continent, an old man in a fiery red robe looked at the red-clad lady next to him and said softly, Girl, we don't have much time left. It's time to leave. When the red-clad lady heard this, her delicate body trembled slightly. A hint of worry could be seen on her peerless face that seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Elder brother Duan, where are you? Tian Wu is very worried about you. Do you know that? The red-clad lady was none other than Feng Tianwu, who had been looking for Duan Lingtian for half a year. She was muttering to herself. In the end, she sighed inwardly. Elder brother Duan, my intuition tells me that you're still alive. When Tian Wu achieves something, she'll definitely come back to look for you. Feng Tianwu muttered in her heart. The 2 figures disappeared in the sky in just a blink of an eye and headed north. They were like 2 streaks of red lightning that flashed across the sky. Their speed was so fast that it was terrifying. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. When Feng Tianwu left with the red-clad old man, Qi Hua, on the other side of Ruoshui River, 4 figures appeared out of thin air in the outer land of Cloud Continent. Among the 4 of them, the leader was a young girl who looked about 15 or 16 years old. The young girl was dressed in yellow, and her youthful appearance was beautiful. One could tell that she would definitely be a devastatingly beautiful woman when she grew up. There was a hint of slyness in her eyes. With just a glance, one could tell that she was a mischievous young girl. There were 3 children, who were 2 heads shorter than the yellow-clad young girl standing next to her. There was a little boy in black, a little girl in white, and a little girl in gold. The black-clad little boy and the white-clad little girl looked very similar. It was as though they were carved out of the same mold. They looked like a pair of twins. As for the golden-clad little girl, she looked like the black-clad little boy and the white-clad little girl. She was only 7 or 8 years old. Her pink little face was very cute, and it made one want to reach out and pinch it. However, there was a hint of slyness in her eyes that was similar to the yellow-clad young girl's. It was obvious that she was also a mischievous young girl. Cloud Continent, Honshu and I am back. The yellow-clad young girl's mischievous eyes flashed as she muttered. There was a hint of excitement in her tone. She had obtained her father's permission to come out this time. She finally did not have to worry about being brought back by the people her father sent. Sister Xuanai, do you think brother will be able to recognize us when he sees us like this? The white-clad little girl looked very quiet. Although she was young, she already had the potential to become a little lady. She looked at the yellow-clad young girl and asked with her bright eyes, "If the 3 of you appear together, Brother Ling Tian will definitely be able to recognize all of you." Han Xuanai sized up the 3 children by her side. A playful smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. "How about this? When we find Brother Ling Tian, I'll go see him first. All of you don't appear first. We'll come out one by one later. I guarantee that he won't be able to recognize us." Sure. Sister Xuanai, you'll see brother first, then I'll see him. Then little white, then little black. The golden-clad little girl agreed with Han Xuanai's words. At the same time, she came up with a plan. Little gold, why should I be the last to see brother? Sister Xuanai, I should be the first to see brother. You should be the last to see him, because you're the most disobedient. You're a bad child. The black-clad little boy snorted in dissatisfaction and said angrily, "You're the bad child. Your whole family are bad children. No, little white is also from your family. You're the only bad child." The golden-clad little girl called Little Gold made a funny face at the little boy and playfully stuck out her tongue. "Moreover, you're a man. Don't you know that ladies go first? I'm not a man. I'm just a little boy." The black-clad little boy said, "All right, both of you stop quarreling. My head hurts from quarreling. After we find Brother Ling Tian, you can use rock, paper, scissors to decide who will see him first." Han Xuanai said with a slight headache. She originally thought that she was mischievous enough. However, in front of these 3 little fellows, she had no choice but to admit defeat. These 3 little fellows were the 3 demon beasts that Han Xuanai took away from Duan Lingtian back then. Little Black, Little White, and Little Gold. Little Black and Little White were the 2 mutated little pythons that had been following Duan Lingtian since a long time ago. After that, they were taken away by Han Xuanai twice. After so many years, they had also transformed into human form. Little Gold was the mischievous little golden mouse that was taken away by Han Xuanai, along with Little Black and Little White. Of course, to be precise, it was not Han Xuanai who wanted to take them away. It was Han Xuanai's Qing Nu who wanted to take them away. "All right, I'll listen to Sister Xuanai." Little Gold nodded, and then made a funny face at Little Black. "You impolite brat who doesn't know that ladies go first. Brother will definitely not like you when he sees you." Brother will not like you." Little Black snorted in dissatisfaction. "All right, both of you stop quarreling. You're really born to be enemies." Little White stood at the side and shook her head lightly, looking like a little adult. Little White is still the sensible one. Han Xuanai stretched out her hand and rubbed the white-clothed little girl's head, before looking at Little Gold and Little Black. She felt a wave of helplessness in her heart. Although the 3 little fellows before her had transformed into human form and had matured intelligence, their temperament had always remained at the stage of a human child. Besides Little White, who was more sensible, the other 2 were like children that would never grow up. Of course, the 3 little fellows had transformed into such an appearance. Unless they could break through the shackles of the congenital stage, otherwise, they would not be able to transform a second time. Being unable to transform a second time also meant that they would only be in such an appearance for their entire lives. After all, before breaking through the shackles of the congenital stage, any demon beast only had one chance to transform. If they wanted to transform a second time, they must first break through the shackles of the congenital stage. Let's go. Let's go to the Skydog Fort to look for that big dog. I told him before I left that if he still hasn't found Big Brother Ling Tian's whereabouts by the time I come back, I'll stew him and eat him. At Han Xuanai's command, she led the three brats towards the south. Big dog, I hope he can't find brother's whereabouts. I haven't eaten dog meat yet. Little Gold's eyes lit up as she spoke. Humph, you only know how to eat. You'll die from eating sooner or later. You've forgotten about brother just because of a meal of dog meat. What a heartless fellow. Little Black snorted in displeasure. Little Gold, I won't help you this time. How can you forget about brother just because of a meal of dog meat? Although I really want to taste dog meat as well. Little White stuck out her little tongue and licked her dry lips as she spoke. When Han Xuanai heard the first half of Little White's sentence, she was still secretly praising Little White for being sensible. However, when she heard the second half of Little White's sentence, she felt that something was amiss. There really are three little devils, Little White muttered to herself. Chapter 1237. In next to no time, Han Xuanai brought along the three little fellows and arrived at the ancient desert city in the northern desert. In the Skywolf Fort, the fort master Qing Lang was shocked when he saw Han Xuanai return. Fortunately, he told Han Xuanai about his meeting with Duan Lingtian in time. Otherwise, he would have probably been stewed and eaten. The three little fellows that followed behind Han Xuanai looked at him covetously, as if they were looking at a plate of delicious delicacies. Three pairs of bright little eyes caused him to feel a chill run down his spine. I should return to the 10 dynasties to take a look first. The clues Qing Lang gave were of no use, so Han Xuanai decided to return to the 10 dynasties to take a look and see if her big brother Ling Tian was still in the Dark Han dynasty. The Dark Han dynasty was the root of her big brother Ling Tian. Little Black, Little White, Little Gold, let's go. Han Xuanai called out to the three little fellows and took the lead to flash out, leaving the ancient desert city and heading towards the south. That was the direction of the 10 dynasties. After Han Xuanai left with the three little fellows, the fort master of Skywolf Fort, Qing Lang, returned to his senses after a short while, and he heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Those three little fellows seemed to not be humans. They gave me the feeling as if I was facing my ancestor when they stood before me. Of course, the feeling wasn't so strong. Qing Lang felt a slight lingering fear when he recalled the scene from before. As a demon that was close to the dog type, his sense of smell and intuition were extremely acute, and he noticed that the three little fellows by Han Xuanai's side weren't humans. Not only weren't they human, those three little fellows that seemed harmless even gave him a feeling of horror. Especially the gazes they shot at him seemed as if they wished for nothing more than to swallow him alive. Han Xuanai brought the three little fellows along and entered the area of the 10 dynasties before long. They went to the Dark Han dynasty and circled around, yet they weren't able to find a trace of Duan Lingtian. For a time, they left the Dark Han dynasty and the 10 great dynasties. They passed through the northern desert and headed north. If big brother Ling Tian really left, he should have left from this direction. Han Xuanai secretly guessed. After leaving the northern desert, they continued to head north. Not long after, she brought the three little fellows to the northern mountain land. She finally found a clue in the northern mountain land. Big brother Ling Tian once stayed in the Lu clan in the northern mountain land? This was the news that Han Xuanai learned. However, when she was about to go to the Lu clan, she heard that the Lu clan had been destroyed and no longer existed. Who is it? How dare he annihilate the Lu family where brother Ling Tian used to live? Han Xuanai's expression darkened as she muttered in a cold voice. Her eyes were filled with a cold light. If I find out who did this, I won't let him off. I'm going to eat him, Little Gold said through gritted teeth. However, she looked like a little girl now. She did not look ferocious at all. Will Big Brother be all right? Little Black and Little White were worried. Soon after, Han Shu and I found out about another matter. It was related to her big brother Ling Tian. Big brother Ling Tian left the Lu clan before it was annihilated? It's very likely that he crossed the Ruoshui River and went to the inner land of the Cloud Continent. Han Shu and I learned about this from someone who was close to the clan leader of the Lu clan in the past. Let's go to the inner land. Han Shu and I would not let go of any clue that she could find. She brought the three little fellows and continued to head north. Soon, they arrived at the Ruoshui River. The Yin-Yang sect's swift boat no longer existed at the Ruoshui River. It was replaced by the Ling Tian sect's swift boat. Initially, Han Shu and I did not plan to take the swift boat. With her and the three little fellows' strength, the Ruoshui River was no threat to them. They had crossed the Ruoshui River to come to the outer land previously, the Ling Tian sect. However, Han Shu and I coincidentally overheard people talking about the Ling Tian sect at the Ruoshui River this time. Han Shu and I frowned slightly. I remember the last time I came to the Cloud Continent. The swift boat at the Ruoshui River should belong to the Yin-Yang sect or something. It's only been a few years. How did it change to the Ling Tian sect? This Ling Tian sect has the same name as Big Brother Ling Tian. Don't tell me it's related to Big Brother Ling Tian? Soon after, Han Shu and I, and the three little fellows looked at each other, and saw the same thing in each other's eyes. What's the Ling Tian sect that you're talking about? I remember the swift boat here belonged to the Yin-Yang sect a few years ago. Han Shu and I landed on the ground, and stared at the person who mentioned the Ling Tian sect, and asked bluntly, "Little girl, you don't know about the Ling Tian sect?" The person looked at Han Shu and I from head to toe in surprise and said, "The Yin-Yang sect that you mentioned is a thing of the past. The Yin-Yang sect changed its name to the Ling Tian sect 2 years ago." Why did it change its name? At this moment, Han Shu and I vaguely realized that the Ling Tian sect might really be related to her big brother Ling Tian. This was because the time when the Yin-Yang sect changed its name to the Ling Tian sect, and the time when her big brother Ling Tian left the Lu clan, were only a few months apart. It's said that a powerful person came to the Yin-Yang sect, and became the sect leader of the Yin-Yang sect, after killing the peak master of the Yin-Yang sects, Yang Peak out of anger for a woman. The person who was questioned by Han Shu and I told her everything he knew. After that, he changed the name of the Yin-Yang sect to the Ling Tian sect. Speaking of the sect leader of the Ling Tian sect, he's really a legendary figure. First, he killed many leaders of first-rate forces on his own. Later on, he recruited a large number of Grade 1 weapons craftsmen and alchemists for the Ling Tian sect. He sighed emotionally as he spoke. Do you know his name? Han Shu and I's breathing quickened as she asked quickly. Duan Ling Tian. The person who was questioned replied immediately. It's really Big Brother. Little White's eyes lit up immediately. Her chubby little face flushed instantly. It was a beautiful sight. Big Brother actually became the sect leader. I want to be the guardian of the Ling Tian sect. Little Black's eyes lit up as he said excitedly. I want to be the great guardian of the Ling Tian sect. Little Gold said, unwilling to fall behind. She wanted to be superior to Little Black. I want to be the great guardian. Little Black said again. If you want to be the great guardian, then I'll be the great guardian. Little Gold said. Seeing that Little Black and Little Gold had begun to argue again, Han Shu and I could not help but feel a headache coming on. However, a smile appeared on her face again when she thought about the news about the Duan Ling Tian sect. Many people in the surroundings were speechless when they heard the conversation between Little Black and Little Gold. They want to be the guardian of the Ling Tian sect? Just these two little brats. In the beginning, they thought it was impossible for these two terrifyingly young children to have the ability to be the guardian of the Ling Tian sect. However, when they thought about it again, they felt that something was amiss. My goodness! How old are they? How can they fly? Many people reacted and revealed astonished expressions. If they want to fly, they must at least break through to the void-prying stage. Could it be that the cultivations of these three little kids have all broken through to the void-prying stage? Even more people were shocked by this. No matter how they looked at it, the three little kids before them were not more than 10 years old. Void-prying stage martial artists that were not more than 10 years old? Could it be that they're demons? Some people guessed like this. However, it was quickly rejected by some people. Look at their pure and innocent innocence. It's completely something that a child should have. Demons that can take human form are basically all old. Do you think they can maintain this innocence? The words of these people obtained the agreement of many people. For a time, little black, little white, and little gold became the center of attention. Little black, little white, little gold. We ought to go. Under the gazes of everyone, Han Shuanai called out to the three little fellows, before taking the lead to fly out towards the Ruoshui River. And her figure vanished before the eyes of everyone at the Ruoshui River. So fast, the group of people at the Ruoshui River never imagined that the young girl, that looked to be only 15 or 16 years old, would actually possess such a terrifying strength. Just by looking at the speed, they were able to discern that the young girl's strength was extraordinary. They were unable to capture the young girl's figure, and this indicated that their strength was inferior to the young girl. However, in next to no time they were stunned, because they noticed that the three little boys and girls that they guessed to be void-prying stage martial artists had chased after the young girl in the blink of an eye, and their figures vanished before their eyes. How is this possible? I'm actually unable to capture their speed in the slightest. Looks like it's very likely that they're really demons that have taken human form. Because they lack communication with humans and demon beasts, they're able to maintain their innocence. Now even more people guessed that little black, little white, and little gold were demons. Han Shuanai wasn't spared as well. After all, a young girl that looked to be around 15 or 16 years old possessed such terrifying speed. According to common sense, it was very unlikely for her to be a human. They're heading towards the Ruoshui River. Could it be that they want to cross the Ruoshui River with their bodies? In next to no time, someone reacted and realized that the direction that Han Shuanai and the three little fellows were flying towards was precisely the direction of the Ruoshui River, and for a moment, they broke out in cold sweat for them. Figures that can cross the Ruoshui River with their bodies are all extremely terrifying existences. If they're not courting death, then their strength is absolutely beyond our imagination. Someone gasped and said, "They don't seem to have the intention of courting death. In this way, it would seem that they're four extremely formidable demons." Someone guessed, "They should be." His guess obtained the agreement of many people. Han Shuanai didn't know what happened at the Ruoshui River after she left. She was currently flying swiftly across the Ruoshui River with the three little fellows, and heading towards the inner land. Big brother Ling Tian is actually a sect leader. When I see him this time, I'll ask him to arrange a position for me to play with. Chapter 1238. The Ling Tian sect was located at the south of the northern desert. Ever since the sect leader, Duan Ling Tian, left without returning, the senior officials of the Ling Tian sect were in low spirits. Gold Thug and Xiong Quan, who left with Duan Ling Tian, did not know whether Duan Ling Tian was alive or dead, because they did not enter the Lost Stone Forest. To the Lost Stone Forest, Duan Ling Tian's intrusion was undoubtedly a taboo. Emperor Wu had personally issued a gag order, so none of Emperor Wu's disciples or followers dared to spread the news. Under such circumstances, the Ling Tian sect was much more low-key compared to before. However, after losing Duan Ling Tian, it was like the Ling Tian sect had lost its backbone. As time went by, the sect's cohesiveness began to weaken. The first to bear the brunt of this were the Grade 1 weapons craftsmen and alchemists. They had come to the Ling Tian sect, mainly to improve their weapon refining Dao and medicine refining Dao. Initially, when they had just arrived at the Ling Tian sect, they had received pointers from the sect leader, Duan Ling Tian. They had learned a lot, and felt the trip was worth it. However, with Duan Ling Tian's disappearance, many Grade 1 weapons craftsmen and alchemists began to have thoughts of leaving the Ling Tian sect. If it was not for the fact that they did not want to be the first to leave and bear the infamy of being ungrateful, they would have left long ago. Whoosh! Today, the Ling Tian sect welcomed an uninvited guest. It was an old man dressed in a gray robe. He was skinny and had a cold expression. His eyes were cloudy, but they were filled with killing intent. Is this the sect that the Duan Lingtian who killed here is in charge of? The gray-robed old man muttered as he looked down at the mountain peak beneath his feet. A person from the outer land has become the leader of a first-rate force in such a short time. Although it's only a low-level first-rate force, it's still not bad. Unfortunately, you killed someone you shouldn't have killed. Murderous intent shot out from the gray-robed old man's eyes as he muttered. Duan Lingtian, you have 10 breaths to appear in front of this old man. Otherwise, this old man will exterminate your entire family. When the gray-robed old man spoke, he secretly used Yuan power. When his voice was transmitted, it was earth-shattering, causing a commotion in the entire Ling Tian sect. Within the Ling Tian peak, where the Ling Tian sect was located, from the Ling Tian sect's higher-ups to the members of the Ling Tian sect, all of their expressions changed. This voice, it's him. In a wooden house on the north side of Ling Tian Peak, a figure flew out of the sky with an extremely unsightly expression. This was a young man. His expression was ugly, and his eyes were filled with deep hatred. It was hatred that came from the bottom of his heart. The young man was none other than Lu Bai. He was the second young master of the Lu clan in the northern mountain. After the Lu clan was destroyed, he crossed the Ruoshui River and came inland to the Ling Tian sect. After that, he stayed in the Ling Tian sect to cultivate in closed-door cultivation. He only came out a few days ago. I have to warn Duan Lingtian. Lu Bai's figure moved, heading to the south side of Heaven Ascension Peak. Since Lu Bai had only come out of closed-door cultivation a few days ago, he did not know that Duan Lingtian had gone missing for a long time. It was only when he met Gold Thug and Xiong Quan that he found out that Duan Lingtian was no longer in the Ling Tian sect. You know that person? Gold Thug lifted his head and looked at the peak of Ling Tian Peak. Although he could not see the situation clearly, the voice earlier came from there. He did not come with good intentions. He's a powerhouse from the Han clan. Our Lu clan was annihilated by him. It seems like he has found out about Duan Lingtian's whereabouts. That's why he came to Ling Tian Peak. Lu Bai said in a deep voice. He could guess many things since the other party came here. Lu clan? Gold Thug frowned. I know a little about this matter, Xiong Quan said. Lu Bai nodded. He had already known about it when Lu Bai came to Ling Tian sect. He had also learned about the Lu clan's annihilation from his young master. He even knew the reason behind it. It was all because his young master had killed Cheng He, the guild master of the Alchemist Guild's main guild in the southern outer land of Cloud Continent. Cheng He himself was nothing. However, the problem was that Cheng He had an uncle who was a powerhouse from the Han clan. The Han clan was one of the 2 great ancient clans on Cloud Continent. They were also the 2 great forces on Cloud Continent. Even Emperor Wu and Demon Emperor powerhouses on Cloud Continent had to be wary of them. The Han clan had been around for 10,000 years. It was already a powerful force on Cloud Continent 10,000 years ago. After 10,000 years of inheritance, its foundation had become extremely powerful. Not many people would believe that the Han clan did not have a powerhouse like Emperor Wu. Of course, the Han clan did not have a powerhouse like Emperor Wu on the surface. Even so, Emperor Wu powerhouses and Demon Emperor powerhouses on Cloud Continent did not dare to offend the Han clan. Who knew if a crazy powerhouse would suddenly appear in the Han clan? Don't tell me the Han clan you mentioned is one of the 2 great ancient clans on Cloud Continent? At this moment, Gold Thug finally regained his senses. His expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with fear and uneasiness. That's right. It's the Han clan. Lu Bai nodded. A powerhouse from the Han clan. How did Master offend him? Gold Thug was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. After all, the ancient clan, the Han clan, was too famous. In the entire Cloud Continent, even Emperor Wu powerhouses and Demon Emperor powerhouses could not do anything to it. Otherwise, as a powerful force on Cloud Continent, it would not have been able to survive until today. After all, the bird that pokes its head out gets shot. After so many years, there must be many Emperor Wu powerhouses and Demon Emperor powerhouses who did not like it, and even attacked it with the intention of destroying it. Even so, it still managed to survive. One could only imagine how powerful it was. Since it has come to this, we can only face it calmly. Xiongquan sighed. Soon the peak of Ling Tian Peak was filled with people. A group of high-ranking officials and Ling Tian sect disciples gathered together. All of them looked at the gray figure in the sky with fear on their faces. The gray figure was an old man in a gray robe. He was also a powerhouse from the Han clan Han Jing. There's still 3 breaths of time left. Han Jing calmly looked at the crowd before him and said nonchalantly, "After 3 breaths of time, if Duan Lingtian doesn't come out, I'll annihilate the entire Lingtian sect. Of course, before that, all of you can choose to leave the Lingtian sect. As long as you leave the Lingtian sect, you'll be able to escape death." Han Jing continued to speak. The moment Han Jing's words left his mouth, the group of people from the Lingtian sect looked at each other. However, no one dared to take the lead. "I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Han Jing, and I'm from the ancient Han clan. Of course, I'm just a nobody in the Han clan." Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, Han Jing's eyes narrowed. The origin energy on his body stirred and caused the heaven and earth energy in the sky to surge. In just a blink of an eye, it formed the heaven and earth phenomenon. An ancient black dragon's silhouette and 2,000 ancient horned dragons' silhouettes gradually appeared. 9th level martial monarch stage. Upon hearing the old man's self-introduction and seeing the heaven and earth phenomenon formed by the old man's origin energy, stirring the heaven and earth energy, many people's faces changed drastically. The group of high-ranking officials from the Ling Tian sect, including the 2 vice sect leaders, Luo Ping and Zhang San, had a grave expression on their faces. They did not expect this old man to be a powerhouse from the Han clan. Moreover, he was a 9th level martial monarch stage powerhouse. A 9th level martial monarch stage martial artist's cultivation base was obvious. Naturally, the profundity that he had comprehended would not be weak. Disregarding the old man's identity, just his strength alone was enough to render the entire Ling Tian sect helpless. Ever since the sect leader of Ling Tian sect, Duan Lingtian, left, the Ling Tian sect no longer had a powerful powerhouse who could stand in the limelight. The reason the Ling Tian sect could continue to exist was because of their sect leader's reputation. Of course, it was mostly because the news of Duan Lingtian's disappearance was not known by many people, so it had not spread out. However, at this moment, someone who was not afraid of Duan Lingtian, the sect leader of Ling Tian sect, had come knocking on their door and announced that he would annihilate the Ling Tian sect. "Senior Han, our sect leader has not returned since he left the sect some time ago." Zhang San took a deep breath and looked at Han Jing anxiously. "Duan Lingtian is not here?" Han Jing raised his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes. "If that's the case, I'll give all of you another 10 breaths of time. After 10 breaths of time, I won't let go of anyone who has not betrayed the Ling Tian sect and stands behind me." When Han Jing reached the end of his sentence, his eyes were filled with killing intent. As though it was supporting his words, the milky white flame on his body was entwined by a multicolored energy in just a blink of an eye. The milky white flame also transformed into a multicolored flame in just a blink of an eye. Whoosh! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, an even more vast heaven and earth energy appeared above Han Jing's head and gathered to form an even more terrifying heaven and earth phenomenon. In just a blink of an eye, a total of 5 ancient black dragon silhouettes and 6,000 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared above Han Jing's head. This was the heaven and earth phenomenon that Han Jing had not even used his spirit weapon. Once he used his spirit weapon and unleashed his full strength, his strength would definitely be more than 6 ancient black dragons' strength and 6,000 ancient horned dragons' strength. How powerful! At once, many people from Ling Tian sect narrowed their eyes in shock. Whoosh! 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 Soon after, many people took the lead and flew out to stand behind Han Jing. These people were the Grade 1 weapons craftsmen and alchemists who had joined Ling Tian sect previously. They had originally planned to leave Ling Tian sect, But now that they were forced to do so by a powerhouse like Han Jing, it was only natural for them to do so. You're all ungrateful. Zhang San cursed with a grave expression when he saw that all the Grade 1 weapons craftsmen and alchemists had left except for him and another person. Vice Sect Leader Zhang, I advise you to stand with us. The sect leader has been missing for more than half a year, and we don't even know if he's coming back. Some of the people standing behind Han Jing advised Zhang San. What? The sect leader is missing? At once, most of the elders and disciples from Ling Tian sect who were present were shocked. It was their first time hearing this news. Their Ling Tian sect leader had been missing for more than half a year? At once, these people no longer hesitated and hurriedly stood behind Han Jing. Chapter 1239. The two vice sect leaders, Luo Ping and Zhang San, were among the few people who did not leave. Following them were Lu Bai, Chen Xiaoshui, Gold Thug, Xiong Quan, and another middle-aged man in a silver robe. Li Si, you're not leaving? Zhang San asked in surprise as he looked at the silver-robed middle-aged man. Apart from being his old friend, Li Si was also an outstanding Grade 1 alchemist. He had just come out of closed-door cultivation a while ago. As soon as he came out of closed-door cultivation, he came to the Ling Tian sect out of admiration. Naturally, Li Si had joined the Ling Tian sect partly because he was here. However, in Zhang San's opinion, Li Si was not like the other Grade 1 alchemists and weapons craftsmen. He did not receive any favor from the Ling Tian sect, so it was reasonable for him to leave. However, Li Si's choice was beyond his expectations. Zhang San, although I'm not convinced by you, since I've decided to join the Ling Tian sect, naturally, I won't betray you. That's not my style, Li Si said. Zhang San nodded. Since all of you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Han Jing did not expect that there would be 7 people who did not know what was good for them, and completely ignored his threat. At that moment he was filled with rage. In an instant, Han Jing took a step forward and raised his hand before he struck out a series of palm strikes. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately, along with a series of loud noises, 7 solid palm prints charged toward Xiong Quan's group of 7. They were so fast that they could not react at all. They only had time to notice the strong wind that was coming at them, causing them to almost suffocate. Although they knew that Han Jing was strong, it was only when Han Jing made a move against them that they truly felt Han Jing's strength. Young master, Xiong Quan will leave first. If there's a next life, Xiong Quan hopes to still be by your side and be at your beck and call. Xiong Quan was completely disheartened. Bang, bang, bang. Just when Xiong Quan and the other 6 thought they were going to die, a deafening sound reverberated in their ears, causing them to regain their senses. This was because they realized Han Jing's attack did not land on them. Unknowingly, an invisible wall seemed to have appeared in front of them. No matter how Han Jing's attack landed on it and caused ripples in the air, it did not penetrate the wall. They knew someone had saved them. Seeing that his attack was blocked, Han Jing did not even have time to figure out who did it. With a raise, a saber appeared in his hand. It was a Grade 1 spirit saber. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sabers rose and fell, and the attacks that covered the sky and covered the earth continued to sweep towards Xiong Quan and the others, with a ferocious momentum. However, when the saber lights that filled the sky approached Xiong Quan's group of 7, they were all blocked. The invisible wall in front of Xiong Quan and the others was extremely sturdy. Thus they were not afraid of Han Jing's attacks, even if Han Jing were to use his full strength with his mystical weapon. Whoosh, 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 whoosh whoosh. This time, Han Jing's expression finally changed. It became extremely ugly. His strength was considered top-notch among the peak martial emperors. He believed that it was almost impossible for anyone below the martial emperor realm to be able to block his attack so easily and not reveal themselves in front of him. Therefore, there was only one possibility. The person who attacked was an Emperor Wu powerhouse. An Emperor Wu powerhouse? The moment Han Jing's words left his mouth, the entire place fell silent. At once, Those who had regained their senses began to look around, as though they were trying to find the Emperor Wu powerhouse, who had attacked them earlier. "Thank you for saving our lives, sir." At this moment, Xiong Quan and the other 6 bowed respectfully in the air to express their gratitude. They knew very well that if it was not for the person who had attacked them secretly, they would have been dead by now. No, perhaps they would not even have a corpse left. "Xiong Quan, long time no see." Just when Han Jing's face was ghastly pale and cold sweat was breaking out on his forehead, and he did not dare to run away, a tender voice resonated in the air. The tender voice belonged to a little girl. "You are." Xiong Quan was stunned when he heard someone calling his name. Moreover, it was a little girl's voice. Whoosh! Soon, Xiong Quan's eyes flashed as he saw a golden figure appear in front of him. It was a little girl dressed in golden clothes. The little girl was pink and cute. "Were you the one who called my name?" Xiong Quan asked uncertainly, as he looked at the little girl in golden clothes in front of him. "Who else could it be?" "Xiong Quan, have you forgotten about me?" The little girl in golden clothes put her hands on her hips and looked at Xiong Quan angrily. "You are?" Xiong Quan looked at the little girl in front of him from head to toe. However, no matter how hard he tried, he could not find any memory of this little girl. "Little girl, I don't think I know you?" Xiong Quan smiled wryly. "Little Gold, I told you that Xiong Quan would not recognize you." At this moment, another tender voice of a little girl was heard as a white figure descended. This time it was a little girl in white. Just when many people were looking at the 2 little girls in shock that they could fly at such a young age, another 2 figures descended from the sky. It was a yellow-clad girl and a black-clad boy. Among the 4 people who appeared, the yellow-clad girl seemed to be the oldest. However, she was only 15 or 16 years old. Although Han Jing was shocked by the sudden appearance of 4 people in front of him, his attention was not on them. He was still searching for the martial emperor, who was hiding in the dark. "Little girl, who are you?" Xiong Quan looked at the little girl in golden clothes, and the confusion on his face deepened. "Xiong Quan, she's Little Gold." At this moment, the little girl in white opened her mouth and explained to Xiong Quan. "Little Gold?" Xiong Quan was at a loss for words. "It's that greedy little golden mouse." At this moment, the black-clad boy opened his mouth to remind Xiong Quan. When Xiong Quan heard the black-clad girl's words, a light bulb went off in his head. He finally recalled the little golden figure. You're the little gold mouse from back then?" Xiong Quan finally reacted. "That's right, I'm the little gold mouse from back then. I'm sure you can guess their identities now, right?" Xiao Jing glared at the little boy in black, then pointed at the little boy in black and the little girl in white, and asked Xiong Quan, "Little black and little white?" Xiong Quan studied the little boy and the little girl, who looked like a pair of twins in front of him. Soon, he snapped back to his senses and asked in disbelief, "That's right, I'm little white, and he's little black," the little girl in white said. At this moment, Xiong Quan felt a little dizzy. The 3 little fellows from back then had transformed into humans now? So they're demons. I was wondering how such a small human child could fly in the air. So it's a demon. Demons can transform into children, even if they're over 100 years old. Many people who had betrayed the Ling Tian sect whispered among themselves. Demons? At this moment, Han Jing, who was originally looking around, retracted his gaze and focused on the 3 children before him. His heart skipped a beat. They're demons? Don't tell me the person who attacked earlier was her? Unknowingly, Han Jing's gaze landed on the yellow-clad girl next to the 3 children. The yellow-clad girl was obviously the leader of the 3 children. When he realized this yellow-clad girl before him might be Emperor Wu's powerhouse, Han Jing's expression turned grave. Let's catch up later. Little Gold, didn't you say you'll settle this matter? The yellow-clad girl was none other than Han Xuanai, who had brought the 3 little fellows to the Ling Tian sect after crossing the Ruoshui River with her physical body. They had just arrived when they saw the commotion earlier. Originally, they had already arrived before the group of people who had betrayed the Ling Tian sect. However, they were not in a hurry to come out. After the people who should have betrayed the sect had left, they decided to show themselves. Before they showed themselves, they had saved the few people who had not betrayed the Ling Tian sect. If you're not going to settle this, I'll do it. Little Black looked at Little Gold and said nonchalantly, You wish. I won this opportunity by beating you with rock, paper, scissors. I'll never give it up to you unless there's something wrong with my head. Little Gold rolled her eyes at Little Black before she turned around and looked at Han Jing. However, a wry smile appeared on her face soon after. This was because a yellow figure had appeared in front of her. To be more precise, it was Han Xuanai who blocked her path. Sister Xuanai. Little Gold was stunned. She had no idea what Han Xuanai was trying to do. Little Gold, I'll settle this person. Han Xuanai's expression was slightly grave as though she had discovered something. You're from the Han clan on Cloud Continent? Han Xuanai asked in a deep voice as she looked at Han Jing calmly. Yes. May I know how to address you, miss? Han Jing, who guessed Han Xuanai might be a demon emperor powerhouse, did not dare to be negligent in the face of Han Xuanai's question. You're not worthy to know my name. In the face of the courteous Han Jing, Han Xuanai did not care about her face as she cried out in a deep voice. Han Jing's face turned grave immediately. If it was not for the fact that the yellow-clad girl before him might be a Emperor Wu powerhouse, he would have attacked her a long time ago. Since you're from the Han clan, I'll settle you myself. How dare you cause trouble for my brother Ling Tian's sect? There's no need for you to live in this world anymore. When Han Xuanai muttered to herself, she seemed to be talking to Han Jing, but at the same time, she seemed to be muttering to herself. However, Han Jing could not help but have a change of expression when he heard her words. In his opinion, since the yellow-clad girl before him dared to say such words, it meant she was confident she could kill him. It seems like she's really the Emperor Wu powerhouse who attacked earlier. Just as Han Jing's heart trembled and was filled with fear, his eyes narrowed almost at the same time. There was a bloody hole in his body, a bloody hole that was emitting cold air. Chapter 1240. The bloody hole that appeared on Han Jing's chest was completely frozen. The ice continued to spread all over his body, and eventually turned him into an ice sculpture. Just before Han Jing completely turned into an ice sculpture, a rapid stream of light suddenly shot out from his body. How dare you play tricks in front of me? The golden-clad little girl snorted, and was about to chase after the communication jade slip that Han Jing had released before he died. Little Gold, there's no need to chase after him. I'd like to see who he can summon. The Han clan on Cloud Continent has been at peace for too long. Perhaps they've already forgotten who gave them everything they have. Han Xuanai stopped Xiao Jin in time and muttered to herself in a low voice. Then, her gaze landed on Han Jing again. To be more precise, she was looking at Han Jing, who had completely turned into an ice sculpture. Smack! All of a sudden, Han Xuanai slowly raised her hand. Ferocious cracks began to appear on the ice sculpture before it exploded and turned into ice shards that filled the sky. Han Jing, who was at the peak of the martial monarch stage, was completely dead in just a blink of an eye. At once, the entire place fell silent. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. When most of the people regained their senses, their gazes landed on the yellow-clad girl standing nearby in unison. This seemingly harmless yellow-clothed young girl caused their hearts to tremble. The scene earlier was definitely the most shocking scene they had ever seen in their lives. That's a Han clan powerhouse at the peak of the martial monarch stage. He died just like that. Many people sucked in a cold breath. This girl, could she really be a Emperor Wu powerhouse? She should be a demon emperor powerhouse. The gazes that landed on Han Xuanai were soon filled with dread. This girl who looked like she was only 15 or 16 years old possessed a power that made their souls tremble. Soon after, the group of people who stood behind Han Jing regretted their actions. These four powerful demons are obviously related to the Ling Tian sect. I'm afraid we can't return to the Ling Tian sect now that we've betrayed them. If I knew there was a demon emperor powerhouse behind the Ling Tian sect that would appear in such a timely manner, I definitely wouldn't have chosen to betray the Ling Tian sect. I was killed by that Han Jing, many people said with regret on their faces. However, It did not cross their minds that since they had betrayed the Ling Tian sect, other than not being able to return to the Ling Tian sect, was there really nothing that could happen to them? Could they just swagger away? Soon after, the two little fellows gave them the answer. Little Black, let's make a bet. Whoever kills the most traitors will be able to see Big Brother Ling Tian first. The golden-clad little girl, who was also Little Gold, looked at the black-clad little boy at the side and said, "Sure." The little black boy was none other than the little black python Xiaohei. He nodded his head coolly. *T. Little Gold and Little Black's conversation was not soft. It clearly entered the ears of the group of Ling Tian sect traitors, causing horror to appear on their faces. They did not know the strength of these two little fellows. However, they had seen Han Xuanai's strength before. She was definitely at the Demon Emperor stage. Put aside the fact that these two little fellows might be stronger than them. Even if they were not, they could not do anything to these two little fellows. After all, there was a Demon Emperor powerhouse next to them. Run! Run! At once, the group of traitors fled in all directions, not daring to hesitate at all. Trying to run. Little Gold and Little Gold sneered when they saw the group of traitors fleeing. Then they moved at the same time and disappeared into thin air. At the very least, the two little fellows disappeared into thin air in front of Xiong Quan and the others. Subsequently, the scene before their eyes caused Xiong Quan and the others to be dumbstruck. Heavens! What did they just see? In their field of vision, the traitors who were just about to flee suddenly stopped in their tracks and exploded into a bloody mist that filled the sky. In their eyes, these traitors seemed to have exploded into a bloody mist out of thin air. However, they knew in their hearts that this was not the case. The reason they saw this scene was because they could not catch the movements of the two little fellows at all. The two little fellows' movements were too fast, to the extent that they could not see them at all. The difference in strength between them was too great. In merely 2 to 3 breaths of time, the group of traitors who betrayed Ling Tian sect, regardless of gender, were all killed. Not a single one was left alive. I killed 359 of them. At this moment, a calm voice resonated in the air, accompanied by the appearance of a golden figure. It was the little girl in golden clothes, Little Gold. Humph! I killed 362 of them. Almost at the same time, Little Gold appeared and said coolly, whether it was Little Gold or Little Black, both of them remained calm when they said they had killed hundreds of people. It was as though they were not killing people but cutting grass earlier. At once, Xiong Quan and the others felt their scalps go numb. The two of them had killed over 700 people, but there was not a single drop of blood on their bodies. This was enough to show how profound their cultivation base was. If I'm not mistaken, they should be Demon Emperor powerhouses as well. Zhang Sen muttered softly. Among the group of people in Ling Tian sect who did not leave Ling Tian sect, his strength was the strongest. He had just broken through to the 8th level martial monarch stage not long ago. Because of this, he had a certain understanding of the strength of a martial artist at the peak of the martial monarch stage. In his opinion, the strength of the little girl in golden and the little boy in black was definitely not as simple as demon monarch powerhouses. If that was the case, there was only one possibility. Both of them were Demon Emperor powerhouses just like the yellow-clad young girl. If it wasn't for your good luck that there were more people over there, I would have definitely defeated you. When Little Gold heard Little Black's words, she said unhappily, "Remember, you have to be willing to admit defeat." Little Black said coolly, "Humph." Little Gold snorted softly as a form of acknowledgement. "You're Xiong Quan." Just as Xiong Quan, Zhang San, and the others were stunned, Han Shu and I looked at Xiong Quan. "I've heard of you, but I've never seen you before." "You are." Xiong Quan was flattered when he saw Han Shu and I greeting him. "Xiong Quan, she's Sister Xuanai. She's also my good friend and sister." Little Gold said to Xiong Quan, "So she's young master's friend." Xiong Quan finally understood. At the same time, he bowed respectfully at Han Shu and I. Xiong Quan greets Miss Xuanai. "Greetings, Miss Xuanai." At this moment, the remaining people, including Zhang San and Luo Ping, also bowed respectfully at Han Shu and I. Even Chen Xiaoshui and Lu Bai were no exception. Chapter 1241. When did Brother Ling Tian go missing? How did he go missing? Han Xuanai looked at Xiong Quan and asked with a solemn expression. Between her eyebrows, there was even a hint of anxiety. It was obvious that before she appeared, she had heard the discussion of the group of traitors who had betrayed the Ling Tian sect. That was how she found out about the Duan Lingtian's disappearance. This matter started more than half a year ago. Xiong Quan sighed. Subsequently, he told her the ins and outs of the matter. In the end, he sighed with a face full of self-blame. It's a pity that I'm too weak. I can't enter the Lost Stone Forest to find out about young master's whereabouts. Lost Stone Forest, huh? Han Xuanai narrowed her eyes. A cold light flashed across her eyes as she muttered to herself. Little Black, Little Gold, the two of you stay behind to guard the Ling Tian sect. Little White and I will make a trip to the Lost Stone Forest. Soon after, Han Xuanai looked at Little Black and Little Gold and said, Sister Xuanai, I want to go as well. The two little fellows hurriedly said, If the two of you leave as well, what if something happens to Brother Ling Tian's sect again? Han Xuanai glared at the two little fellows angrily. Subsequently, under the two little fellows' helpless gazes, she asked Xiong Quan where the Lost Stone Forest was, and left with the white-clad little girl. The white-clad little girl was the little white python from back then, Little White. After Han Xuanai left with Little White, Little Gold looked at the other 6 people apart from Xiong Quan and said, The few of you are quite lucky. Upon hearing Little Gold's words, the 6 of them could not help but smile wryly. Naturally, they knew why Little Gold said that. If they had betrayed the Ling Tian sect and stood behind the Han clan's powerhouse, Han Jing, from the beginning, they would have been dead by now. Li Si, it's fortunate that you made a wise choice back then. Zhang San looked at Li Si and spoke through voice transmission. He was glad for Li Si. Li Si smiled awkwardly. He really did think about leaving, but after thinking about it, he felt that it wasn't right. Moreover, his old friend Zhang San didn't choose to betray the Ling Tian sect, so he decided to stay. Now, it seemed that he had made a wise choice. Actually, if one really wanted to talk about the luckiest people, it would not be Zhang San and the others. The luckiest ones were none other than those who had left the Ling Tian sect recently. A group of Ling Tian sect elders and disciples who had left the Ling Tian sect recently still had lingering fears after knowing what had happened today. They had no doubt. If they were present at that time, they would definitely have chosen to betray the Ling Tian sect. After all, the Demon Emperor expert would only descend later. Before that, they wouldn't hold any hope for the Ling Tian sect. Fortunately, I left these few days. Yeah, otherwise we'd definitely be dead. Now, not only have we survived, we can even continue to stay in the Ling Tian sect. I heard that it wasn't just Miss Xuanai who had temporarily left our Ling Tian sect. Even the 2 little ancestors who are currently staying in our Ling Tian sect are suspected to be Demon Emperor experts. With these few Demon Emperor powerhouses, wouldn't our Ling Tian sect be able to surpass all the first-rate forces on Cloud Continent in one leap? The group of Ling Tian sect elders and disciples who were lucky discussed from time to time. When they discussed, besides feeling lucky, their hearts were filled with excitement and joy. On the Cloud Continent, even the upper-class first-rate forces only had a peak martial monarch powerhouse guarding them. There was no martial emperor powerhouse. With a demon emperor powerhouse that was comparable to a martial emperor powerhouse, the Ling Tian sect had already left the first-rate forces on Cloud Continent in the dust to a certain extent. The 2 little ancestors they were talking about were naturally Little Gold and Little Black. Little Gold and Little Black stayed behind to guard the Ling Tian sect. They were not idle and liked to wander around. As long as it was someone from the Ling Tian sect, they would bully them before. How boring. If I knew this would happen, I would have left you here alone and followed Sister Xuanai to that Lost Stone Forest. Little Gold and Little Black sat on each side of Ling Tian Peak. Little Gold said regretfully, Do you think I'd let you go? Little Black asked coolly. Or perhaps, You think Sister Shui and I asked both of us to stay because she said it casually and didn't mean it? Humph. Hearing this, Xiao Jin snorted and no longer paid attention to Xiao He. The two little fellows were a pair of quarrelsome lovers. Lingxian Peak. There were only 3 days left before the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers began. I've regained some of my memories. Unfortunately, I still can't remember who I am. A voice suddenly resonated from the only pavilion on the vast stone platform at the side of Lingxian Peak. There was a hint of helplessness in the voice. Duan Lingtian, who had just woken up from his cultivation, shook his head, got off the bed, and walked out of the room. After a while he left the pavilion. Since the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers would begin in 3 days, Duan Lingtian could see many figures in front of the cottages on the other stone platform below when he came out. These figures were all people like Duan Lingtian. Naturally, the same people referred to the fact that they came to Lingxian Peak with the same purpose as Duan Lingtian. They were all people who came to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, held by Lingxian Peak. Currently, these people were gathered in pairs and sparring. It was very lively. Suddenly, as though he sensed something, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he turned to look to his side. Then, a gust of wind blew by his side and a figure appeared. It was an old figure. Upon closer inspection, it was Qiao Zhong, the disciple of Lingxian Peak's Emperor Wu, who had brought him here half a year ago. Duan Lingtian, the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers is about to begin. You have to be careful in these 3 days. That Lu Zhong is not easy to deal with. Qiao Zhong reminded Duan Lingtian with a solemn expression. Okay. Duan Lingtian nodded. However, his expression was non-committal. It was as though he did not take Qiao Zhong's words to heart. Or perhaps he did not take Lu Zhong seriously at all. Lu Zhong isn't the only one who's strong. Most importantly, he has a martial emperor's direct disciple behind him. That direct disciple of Emperor Wu views Lu Zhong as his right-hand man. If Lu Zhong suffers any losses in your hands, I'm afraid he won't just stand by and watch, Qiao Zhong continued. The more he spoke, the more solemn his expression became. Direct disciple? This time, Duan Lingtian's eyes suddenly lit up. It was as though he was particularly interested in Lingxian Peak's direct disciple. You mean, if I hurt or kill Lu Zhong, that direct disciple of Emperor Wu behind him will attack me? Duan Lingtian looked at Qiao Zhong and asked with uncertainty. That's right. Chapter 1242. Qiao Zhong quickly realized. Upon hearing his words, the purple-clad young man in front of him suddenly smiled. His smile sent chills down Qiao Zhong's spine. Emperor Wu's direct disciple? The smile on Duan Lingtian's face quickly disappeared. His eyes gleamed brightly as a hint of battle intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. Naturally, Qiao Zhong did not notice this. Otherwise, he would have been shocked. He believed that Duan Lingtian was stronger than most of Emperor Wu's disciples in Lingxian Peak. However, he did not believe that he was stronger than Emperor Wu's direct disciple. At the same time, 3 figures suddenly appeared in front of an independent pavilion on a stone platform on the mountainside of Lingxian Peak. If Duan Lingtian was here, he would definitely recognize the leader of the 3 figures as Lu Zhong. Both of you may leave. At this moment, Lu Zhong spoke calmly to the 2 people behind him. Yes, the 2 of them left. After the 2 of them left, Lu Zhong looked at the independent pavilion in front of him and bowed respectfully. Senior Brother Song. As soon as Lu Zhong finished speaking, a figure appeared out of thin air in front of the independent pavilion. It was a young man dressed in blue. The young man had a medium build and an ordinary appearance. However, the black mole on his right eyebrow was particularly eye-catching. Lu Zhong, are you looking for me? The young man in blue was one of the 3 direct disciples under Lingxian Peak's spirit profound Emperor Wu. He was also ranked 2nd Song Ting. Senior Brother Song, I'd like to ask you to give me a spot to supervise the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers in 3 days. Lu Zhong did not even dare to breathe loudly in front of Song Ting, as he spoke respectfully. The supervisor was the person in charge of supervising the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers in 3 days. He mainly monitored the people who participated in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, and recorded their results. The person in charge of supervising was the judge. The 2 judges were Emperor Wu's direct disciples. Song Ting was one of them. Therefore, Song Ting had the authority to appoint a supervisor. "Why are you suddenly interested in this?" Song Ting asked, obviously curious about this. "Senior brother Song, to tell you the truth, the reason I want to be a supervisor is because I want to kill someone." Lu Zhong gritted his teeth and said. He didn't hide anything from Song Ting, nor did he dare to. If he hid the truth and Song Ting found out, he wouldn't have a good ending. To put it nicely, he was Song Ting's right-hand man. To put it bluntly, he was just a lackey, a dog that could be summoned at will. He would bite whoever he told him to. As a master, no matter how much he valued the dog around him, once the dog bit him one day, he would still kill the dog without hesitation. "Oh!" Song Ting's eyes flashed, and he became more and more curious. "You are Emperor Wu's disciple. Why would you have a grudge with someone who is participating in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers?" "Senior brother Song, my younger brother Lu Yi was killed by him," Lu Zhong said with grief and indignation. "Lu Yi was killed by him?" Song Ting's face darkened when he heard Lu Zhong's words. In Lingxian Peak, apart from a small number of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, who chose to be neutral, most of the disciples and followers of Emperor Wu had chosen to side with him. They either chose to side with Song Ting, Emperor Wu's second direct disciple, or they chose to side with Emperor Wu's third direct disciple. The 2 sides were opposing each other. Whether it was Lu Zhong or Lu Yi, they were both on Song Ting's side. Now that Song Ting heard that someone from his side had been killed, his eyes could not help but reveal a hint of anger. As the saying went, one has to look at the master before beating a dog. In his opinion, if someone dared to kill Lu Yi, it meant that they didn't take him seriously. Since he was able to kill Lu Yi, it means he's quite strong. "Are you sure you can kill him to avenge Lu Yi?" Soon after, Song Ting's expression returned to normal as he asked nonchalantly. "Yes." Lu Zhong nodded fiercely. He was very confident in his strength. Unless it was someone at the level of Emperor Wu's direct disciple, or some extremely strong powerhouses at the peak of the martial monarch realm, he was confident he could deal with the rest. "Then you should prepare yourself. 3 days later, we'll go to the place where the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers will be held. At that time, you'll be the supervisor and wait for an opportunity to kill that person," Song Ting said. Lu Zhong nodded respectfully. "Yes." Lu Zhong nodded respectfully. His eyes were filled with a hint of madness. It was as though he could already see the scene of the enemy, who killed his younger brother, falling in front of him. At this moment, Duan Lingtian naturally did not know that Lu Zhong was already plotting against him. At this moment he was walking up and down Lingxian Peak. It had been a long time since he came to Lingxian Peak, but this was his first time looking at Lingxian Peak in such detail. Unknowingly, this steep mountain peak that shot up into the sky like a sword had given him a brand new understanding. Looking at this mountain peak in front of me, I seem to have absorbed and digested some of the obscure information in the depths of my mind. It won't be long before my sword profundity breaks through again. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself as he hovered in the air. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. At this moment, he was staring at the mountain peak that looked like a sword in front of him. His eyes were fixed on it, and he was extremely focused. At this moment, the entire mountain peak seemed to have transformed into a gigantic sword in his eyes. It was a gigantic sword that soared into the heavens. I heard from Xiaozhong that the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers will be held in Lingxian Peak this time. Spirit Profound Emperor Wu won't be showing up, and the 2 direct disciples of Emperor Wu will be in charge of it. Soon after, Duan Lingtian regained his senses as though he had recalled something. I wonder if Yang Hui is among the 2 direct disciples of Emperor Wu. Yang Hui was the person he had met at the peak of Lingxian Peak not long ago. He still remembered that when he met Yang Hui that day, Yang Hui was controlling and practicing his sword with his spiritual energy. Based on his speculation, apart from being an inscription master, Yang Hui was most likely one of Emperor Wu's direct disciples in Lingxian Peak. Today, he had also gone to the peak of Lingxian Peak, but he did not see Yang Hui again. Lingxian Peak was about to hold the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers. Everywhere in the inner land of Cloud Continent, the cultivation grounds of Emperor Wu's powerhouses and Demon Emperor powerhouses were bustling with activity. This was because their cultivation grounds were also holding the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers. Emperor Wu's powerhouses and Demon Emperor powerhouses on the surface of Cloud Continent were all holding the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers. They were wantonly recruiting disciples and followers. When the news spread, it shook half of the inner land. In the extreme cold north of the inner land, there was a valley that was surrounded by mountains. It was cold all year round. It was covered in white snow and was shrouded in mist. It was like a fairyland. However, there was a special lake in this fairyland-like place. It was a lake that emitted dense cold air. Although the weather was so cold that even the flowers and trees were frozen, the lake was still sparkling as usual. It was not affected by the cold air at all. Apart from the lake, there was another bright spot in the huge valley. That was, the people walking in the valley were all female martial artists. They were chattering, and it was very lively. There were 3 more days before the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, held by Yuhan Valley, would begin. At the place where Yuhan Valley hosted the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, there was a small independent valley. Beautiful figures began to walk out of the wooden houses one after another. The small independent valley became lively all of a sudden. Most of them had anticipation and anxiety on their faces. There was only one person who had a glum expression on his face. Those 2 little cheese haven't come back since they left. Don't tell me they really have a close relationship with that martial emperor's disciple? She was an ugly woman. One look at her would make one lose their appetite completely. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, 3 piercing sounds of wind whistling were heard. They only stopped when they reached the sky above the small valley. Including the ugly woman, all the people who had left the wooden houses in the valley looked up into the sky. There were 3 women standing side by side. Among the 3 ladies, a lady in green stood in the middle. Beside her stood 2 peerless beauties. One looked enchanting and charming, while the other looked obedient and quiet. Both of them had their own characteristics. It's them. At that moment, many people in the small valley recognized the 2 ladies. Many of them looked at the ugly woman. They still remembered that it was this ugly woman who had almost killed the 2 beautiful ladies. When they thought that the 2 ladies were going to die, they felt that it was a pity. Who knew that things would take a turn for the worse? A disciple of Emperor Wu appeared and saved them. I remember. They haven't come back since the disciple of Emperor Wu took them away. I thought that something had happened to them, but I didn't expect to see them again. The selection of Emperor Wu's disciples organized by Yuhan Valley is about to begin. It seems that they are here because of the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples. That should be the case. But who is this lady in green? Why haven't I seen her before? As the saying goes, 3 ladies make a scene. The group of ladies gathered in the small valley, making it even more lively. Many of them started to look at the lady in green. Even the ugly woman, although she wanted nothing more than to kill the 2 beauties, had no choice but to be wary of this mysterious green-clothed woman. Junior Sisterly, is she here? Under the gazes of the crowd, the green-clothed woman spoke. When she spoke, she cast a sideways glance at the enchanting and charming woman beside her. Chapter 1243. When the lady in green called Li Fei Junior Sister, many people's expressions changed. When Li Fei looked at the ugly lady, everyone, including the ugly lady, reacted and guessed the purpose of Li Fei's return today. You're the one who almost killed Junior Sister Kerr and Junior Sister Li? The lady in green looked at the ugly lady and asked calmly. Although she looked calm, there was a murderous intent in her eyes. That's right. Who are you? The ugly lady nodded and looked at the lady in green with a gloomy expression. She had a feeling that the lady in green was not simple. How dare you? At this moment, a shout was heard. A white figure appeared in front of the ugly lady, in the blink of an eye. Slap. A crisp sound of a slap rang out, and the ugly woman's head tilted to the side. She had been slapped in the face. The person who slapped her was the lady in white who had just appeared. You, the ugly woman reacted. She was enraged at once. The origin energy in her body surged. Her Upanishad followed like a shadow. She wanted to attack the person who had slapped her. However, when she saw the appearance of the white-robed woman, she swallowed the words that she was about to say. The person who appeared before her was none other than the martial emperor's disciple, who had rescued the two devastatingly beautiful women that she wanted to kill back then. His strength was far from what she could compare to. Kneel down and apologize to Senior Sister Sue, the lady in white said coldly to the ugly lady. Then, while the ugly woman and most of the people present were stunned, the woman in white looked at the woman in green and greeted her respectfully. Senior Sister Sue. Senior Sister Kerr, Senior Sister Lee. Other than greeting the green-clad woman respectfully, the white-clad woman was also respectful when she looked at Kerr and Li Fei. She addressed them as Senior Sister. Perhaps Kerr and Li Fei were not as powerful as her. However, as Emperor Wu's direct disciples, Kerr and Li Fei were much more powerful than her in Yuhan Valley. Therefore, she had to address them respectfully as Senior Sister when she saw them. The ugly woman's expression changed when she saw the white-clothed woman greet the green-clothed woman respectfully. An ominous premonition rose in her heart. Now, when she heard the white-clad woman address the two women whom she wished she could kill as senior sisters, her pupils suddenly constricted, and a hint of despair appeared on her ugly face. Boom! The way the lady in white addressed Kerr and Li Fei was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. It shocked everyone who was going to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers. Senior Sister? This disciple of Emperor Wu actually addressed the two ladies who were going to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers as Senior Sister? Moreover, the ladies' respect was shocking. Could it be? At that moment, many of them guessed something, but they did not dare to confirm it. That was because it was simply too frightening. Run! Soon, a swift figure that was dashing out of the valley attracted everyone's attention. It was the ugly lady. She wanted to run. This was because she had already vaguely guessed the identity of the green-clothed woman, as well as the identity of the two women whom she wished she could kill. Emperor Wu's direct disciples. Only the Emperor Wu's direct disciples would be treated so respectfully by the lady in white, who was Emperor Wu's direct disciple. The green-clad lady was Martial Emperor Yuhan's direct disciple Soaring. She scoffed casually, and in the next second, a majestic energy gushed out of her body. The vast power appeared quickly and left quickly as well. However, during this period of time, a vast power that only appeared briefly appeared in the ugly woman's path and directly knocked her back. Pooh! The ugly woman, who was knocked back by Soaring's power, spat out a large mouthful of blood before anyone else could react. Her face turned extremely pale. How powerful! Too powerful. From the beginning until the end, I didn't even see how she made her move. Of course, didn't you see the heaven and earth energy above her head dissipating as soon as it appeared? Many people were shocked. It seems like she's really Emperor Wu's direct disciple. Although I had a guess earlier, I didn't dare to believe it. Now that I look at it, her strength is definitely at the level of Emperor Wu's direct disciple. The two ladies next to her must have become Emperor Wu's direct disciples as well. Otherwise, that Emperor Wu's disciple wouldn't address them as Senior Sister. As Soaring made her move, everyone guessed her identity. They also guessed Kerr and Li Fei's current identities. For a time, many people looked at Soaring with burning desire. Many people looked at Kerr and Li Fei with jealousy. Boom! Before the ugly lady could react, Soaring made her move again and crippled her Dantian at lightning speed before sending her flying. The ugly lady fell heavily in the distance with a loud bang. Her eyes were filled with despair. Junior Sister Lee, I've already crippled her. You can do it yourself. Su Rong said to Li Fei. Li Fei did not hesitate. With a raise of her hand, she slapped her palm out. A palm seal materialized and slammed heavily on the ugly lady's head. Before the ugly lady could react, Li Fei's palm seal had already landed on her head, killing her with just one strike. From the beginning until the end, even Kerr did not stop Li Fei from making her move. Although Kerr was kind, she was not a blind person. The ugly lady had almost killed her and her sister Fei. Even if she died, she deserved to die. Thank you, senior sister Su. After killing the ugly lady, Li Fei heaved a sigh of relief, as though a heavy burden had been lifted off her shoulders. She thanked Su Rong together with Kerr. We're sisters. There's no need to thank me, Su Rong said with a smile. Soon after, Kerr, Li Fei and Su Rong left. They came and left in a hurry. Only the group of women in the valley were left in shock. They only regained their senses when Kerr and the other two disappeared from their sight. Their eyes fell on the ugly lady's corpse in unison. In their eyes, there was only schadenfreude. There was no pity at all. The ugly lady's actions in the past had already enraged everyone. Now that she was dead, everyone felt as though the sky had brightened up. I wonder how those two ladies managed to become Martial Emperor Yu Han's direct disciples. Soon after, someone was curious about this. I thought they were only acquainted with Emperor Wu's disciple. I didn't expect them to become people that I can only look up to when we meet again. Many people whispered among themselves. Their words were filled with awe. At least we can be sure of one thing. They must be very talented. Of course. Otherwise, why would Yu Han Emperor Wu be willing to accept them as his direct disciples? Soon after, many people made their guesses. However, they would never be able to guess it. The reason Emperor Wu of Yu Han accepted Kerr and Li Fei as his direct disciples was not because of their talents, but because of other reasons. While the cultivation places of Emperor Wu powerhouses, such as Lingxian Peak and Yuhan Valley, were bustling with activity. However, it was a different scene in Lost Stone Forest in the western region of Cloud Continent's inner land. Originally, Lost Stone Forest was bustling with activity because the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers would begin 3 days later. However, the entire Lost Stone Forest fell silent when a young lady and a little girl arrived. Most of the people began to gather in the central area of Lost Stone Forest. The reason for this was because the two uninvited guests were currently in the central area of Lost Stone Forest. Sister Xuanai, don't tell me that Emperor Wu, Shiqi or something, doesn't dare to come out? Under the watchful eyes of the others, the little girl in white asked the young lady in yellow next to her. Her bright eyes were filled with innocence. Upon hearing her words, the group of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers were speechless. Did she just say that their Lost Stone Forest's Emperor Wu did not dare to come out? This little girl really dared to say anything. The monk can run away, but the temple can't. He'll come out. Upon hearing the little girl in white's words, the young lady in yellow said calmly. She did not seem to be in a hurry at all. The young lady in yellow was Han Xuanai, who had rushed over from Ling Tian's sect. After she brought the little girl in white, Little White, to Lost Stone Forest, she had barged all the way here. The disciples and followers of Emperor Wu that they encountered along the way could not catch up to them at all. Naturally, when they arrived, many of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers attacked them. However, all of them were killed by them without exception. Due to this reason, the disciples and followers of Emperor Wu who gathered around did not dare to attack them anymore. In their eyes, the young lady in yellow, who looked like she was only 15 or 16 years old, and the little girl in white, who did not look more than 10 years old, were no different from devils. Who's there? How dare you trespass into our Lost Stone Forest? As a furious voice resonated in the air, 3 figures appeared. They were the 3 direct disciples of the Master of Lost Stone Forest, Emperor Wu, Shiqi. After they appeared, they surrounded Han Xuanai and Little White. Little White, I'll leave them to you. From the beginning until the end, Han Xuanai did not even look at the 3 of them who had just appeared. It was as though she did not care about them at all. Naturally, Han Xuanai did not care about the 3 of them at all. Upon hearing Han Xuanai's words, a gleam flashed across Little White's big, watery eyes. Then, she disappeared under the watchful eyes of the crowd. At the same time, she also disappeared in front of the three martial emperor's direct disciples. Oh no! At once, the three direct disciples of Emperor Wu had an ominous feeling in their hearts. Horror dawned on their faces. Their current expression was destined to be the last expression they would show in this world. The reason for that was because a hole had appeared on their throats in the very next moment. It was a bloody hole. One of them had escaped after cheating him of his items. Now another three had died. This meant that he only had one personal disciple left. He didn't really care about the life and death of his personal disciples. However, he cared about his reputation. If the other Emperor Wu powerhouses and Demon Emperor powerhouses found out that 4 of his 5 personal disciples were dead, they would definitely laugh their heads off. Both of you barged into Lost Stone Forest and killed my personal disciples. Don't you think you should give me an explanation? Emperor Wu asked in a deep voice. Since the white-clad little girl could kill his 3 personal disciples in the blink of an eye, it meant that she was a Demon Emperor powerhouse. The other yellow-clad girl was the leader of the 2. Her ability was most likely on par with the white-clad little girl. Therefore, he guessed that both of them were Demon Emperor powerhouses. Moreover, both of them were Demon Emperor powerhouses. Explanation. Before Han Shu and I could speak, Little White snorted and smirked. Since you want us to give you an explanation, shouldn't you give me one as well? What do you mean by that? Martial Emperor Shi asked in a deep voice when he realized the white-clad little girl before him was a Demon Emperor powerhouse. He did not dare to underestimate her just because of her young age. What do I mean? This time Han Shu and I sneered. You're Emperor Wu, right? I heard that more than half a year ago, you have a personal disciple called Zhou Yi who abducted my brother Ling Tian's confidant? After that, ever since my brother Ling Tian came to your Lost Stone Forest, there has been no news of him at all. If you don't give me an explanation today, I'll make you accompany your 3 direct disciples in hell. As she finished speaking, Han Shuanai's pair of lively eyes seemed to have an additional sharpness, as if she was waiting to devour someone. Zhou Yi, brother Ling Tian's confidant? At this moment, Emperor Wu finally regained his senses. He understood the purpose of the yellow-clad girl and white-clad little girl's visit. As it turned out, they were here for the purple-clad young man who had wreaked havoc in his Lost Stone Forest more than half a year ago. When he thought of the purple-clad young man, he felt annoyed. Fear still lingered in his heart when he thought of the battle more than half a year ago. The purple-clad young man who possessed terrifying strength with the help of the mysterious stone tablet had almost killed him. That was the biggest crisis he had ever faced since he had broken through to the Emperor Wu stage. If the purple-clad young man had not left in the end, it was impossible for him to be standing here in one piece. It's Zhou Yi again. When Martial Emperor Shi recalled this matter, he immediately thought of Zhou Yi and gritted his teeth in hatred. In his opinion, Zhou Yi was furious. This matter was instigated by Zhou Yi. If it wasn't for Zhou Yi snatching back the purple-clothed youth's soulmate, there wouldn't have been so many things happening later on. Most importantly, Zhou Yi had actually replaced the mysterious stone tablet left behind by the purple-clad young man. This was definitely the biggest provocation to him. When Emperor Wu thought of how Zhou Yi was still hiding somewhere to study the mysterious stone tablet, he felt annoyed again. Humph! I don't know what you're talking about. Chapter 1245. All I know is that you've killed 3 of my direct disciples. You must give me an explanation today. An explanation that I'm satisfied with. Emperor Wu's eyes gleamed coldly when he reached the end of his sentence. You want us to give you an explanation? Upon hearing Emperor Wu's words, disdain could be seen in the depth of Han Shuanai's eyes. At the same time, she asked curiously, I wonder what kind of explanation you want us to give you. You've killed 3 of my direct disciples and caused a great loss to Lost Stone Forest. Both of you must be demon emperors. Swear on the 99 heavenly tribulation that you'll work for me for 30 years. Emperor Wu said. This was the explanation he wanted. Although he guessed the yellow-clad girl and the white-clad little girl were demon emperor powerhouses, he did not think their strength could defeat him. After all, he was at the 4th level martial monarch stage. With his strength, he could be ranked in the upper middle among Emperor Wu powerhouses and demon emperor powerhouses on Cloud Continent. In his opinion, the 2 demon emperors before him were no match for him at all. This was because he knew all the demon emperors who were more powerful than him on Cloud Continent. However, the 2 before him were not one of them. Working for you for 30 years. Upon hearing Emperor Wu's words, Han Xuanai and Little White were stunned. On the other hand, the eyes of the onlookers, whether they were Emperor Wu's disciples, followers, or those who participated in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, held by Lost Stone Forest, lit up. In their opinion, there was a good show to watch. Do you think Lord Emperor Wu can really force them to work for him for 30 years? I think so. I think Lord Emperor Wu seems to be very confident in his strength. He's not afraid even when he knows these 2 are demon emperor powerhouses. If they really work for Lord Emperor Wu, then our Lost Stone Forest will have 2 more demon emperor powerhouses. I'm excited just thinking about it. Many of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers were excited. I didn't expect to see Emperor Wu's disciple and follower selection in Lost Stone Forest before it even started. It is said that Emperor Wu Shiqi has been in the 3rd level of the Emperor Wu realm for a long time. Now that so many years have passed, I'm afraid he has already broken through to the 4th level of the Emperor Wu realm. He should have already made a breakthrough. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so confident in front of 2 suspected demon emperors. The people who were about to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, held in Lost Stone Forest, were also discussing and voicing their thoughts. For a moment, they were filled with confidence in Emperor Wu's strength. Xiaobai, someone wants us to work for him for 30 years. Han Xuanai was the first to regain her senses. She looked at Little White and said, that will depend on whether he has the ability or not. Upon hearing that, Little White's eyes gleamed coldly as she stared at Emperor Wu. Her tone was calm, but it was filled with killing intent. I'll let you know whether I have the ability or not. Very soon, all of you will submit to my strength and be willing to work for me for 30 years. In the face of Little White's provocation, Emperor Wu refused to back down. If that's the case, I'll play with you. Little White said nonchalantly. I'm more than happy to play with you. Emperor Wu replied nonchalantly as well. The moment his words left his mouth, his robe fluttered and emitted waves of terrifying aura. Most of the onlookers could not help but take a few steps back. Some of the people with lower cultivation bases were even forced to retreat further away. Emperor Wu's strength was too powerful. It was so powerful that it was terrifying. On the other hand, Little White was not afraid of the aura emitted from Emperor Wu's body. It was as though she did not sense it at all. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Emperor Wu and the little girl in white disappeared into thin air in front of most of the onlookers. Only the sound of the wind was left. Boom! 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 Before they could react to what was going on, they heard a series of deafening booms that reverberated in their ears like thunder. Before they could even focus their eyes, they felt waves of terrifying gales sweeping over, causing most of them to be sent flying like arrows that had left the bowstring. Only Emperor Wu's disciples did not move at all. However, they all squinted their eyes at the same time. Boom! Just when the group of Emperor Wu's disciples and more than 90% of the participants in the selection were in a sorry state, another loud sound was heard. It was accompanied by an even more terrifying gust of wind. This time, Emperor Wu's disciples were also sent flying. As for the others, it was even more exaggerated. Their faces were pale, and they were vomiting blood. Some of them were even sent flying by the gust of wind, and completely disappeared. For a moment, in the center of the storm, other than the 2 people who caused the storm, only Han Xuanai was left standing there. She was as steady as Mount Tai, allowing the gust of wind to sweep her away. Puff! The group of pale Emperor Wu's disciples had just stood still when they heard the sound of someone vomiting blood. As they looked at the center of the storm, they happened to see Emperor Wu vomiting blood. After Shirqi vomited blood, Emperor Wu's face was extremely pale. His hand that was holding a 7-foot-long spear was trembling. Obviously, Emperor Wu had even used the quasi-royal grade spirit spear in his hand. Even so, he was still at a disadvantage. On the other hand, the little girl in white who was holding a short dagger stood there. She was only panting a few times. There were some traces of sweat on her forehead, but there was nothing unusual. The difference between the two of them was obvious. Lord Emperor Wu is defeated? The group of Emperor Wu's disciples was stunned. They were completely stunned. Emperor Wu, who was like an invincible god of war in their eyes, was defeated? Who are you? While the group of Emperor Wu's disciples was still in a daze, and most of the remaining people had yet to react, Emperor Wu looked at the little girl in white with a grave expression, and asked with dread in his eyes. However, Little White did not answer him. Instead, she asked nonchalantly, "Now, do you still want us to give you an explanation and work for you for 30 years? When Little White's words entered Emperor Wu's ears, it was especially ear-piercing. It caused his already pale face to turn even paler. Slap in the face. A blatant slap in the face. This was the only thought in the hearts of the onlookers. At this moment, the group of Emperor Wu's disciples and the others finally regained their senses. All of them looked at the scene before them in shock. The owner of Lost Stone Forest, Emperor Wu, was defeated in the battle earlier? He seemed to be injured as well. Tell me, what happened to my brother Ling Tian after he came to Lost Stone Forest? Where is he now? Chapter 1246. Emperor Wu was stunned. He was completely stunned. He did not even hear what Han Xuanai said. The scene from earlier kept replaying in his mind. He had used his quasi-royal grade spirit weapon and unleashed his full strength when facing the white-clad little girl, who did not look more than 10 years old. However, he was still defeated. At this moment, he finally realized something. Not only was the white-clad little girl a demon emperor powerhouse, but she was also a demon emperor powerhouse whose ability far surpassed his. Moreover, this demon emperor powerhouse was here for the purple-clad young man. Didn't you hear what my sister Xuanai asked you? As the childish voice that was filled with coldness entered Emperor Wu's ears, Emperor Wu shuddered and snapped back to his senses. Naturally, he was no stranger to this voice. It was the voice of the white-clad little girl who had just defeated him. Instantly, he looked at the yellow-clad little girl who was not far away in fear. There was only fear in his eyes. What a joke! That white-clad little girl was even more powerful than him. This yellow-clad little girl whom she called sister was another existence who seemed to be a demon emperor powerhouse. Perhaps her ability was even more powerful than her. "See, can you say that again?" Emperor Wu said to Han Xuanai in fear. His tone was extremely polite. It was as though he was a completely different person compared to the aggressive him from before. Of course, this was also because he did not know the white-clad little girl's ability. If he had known, he would not have dared to act that way. On Cloud Continent, the strong were respected. Even if he was a powerhouse like Emperor Wu, who was high and mighty in front of ordinary martial artists, he would still have to be as humble as a grandson in front of someone who was more powerful than him. Emperor Wu was a powerhouse. The hardships he had to go through were not something ordinary martial artists could compare to. In order to survive, they would even do anything crazy, let alone admit defeat, and act like a grandson. Han Xuanai glanced at Emperor Wu coldly, and repeated her words impatiently. Upon hearing this, Emperor Wu did not dare to delay, and quickly answered. He started from the moment he saw Duan Lingtian, until Duan Lingtian obtained a power that was on par with him through a mysterious stone tablet, and fought with him. He did not dare to hide what happened after that, and told her everything. He told her everything, including how Duan Lingtian lost his mind and left, how Feng Tianwu was taken away, and how his direct disciple, Zhou Yi, swindled the mysterious stone tablet away. At that moment, he did not care about his reputation. Nothing was more important than his life. He did not dare to lie because it was too risky. If the two ladies in front of him were not satisfied and killed him in a bad mood, then he would really lose more than he gained. Stone tablet? Brother Ling Duan Lingtian lose his mind? Han Xuanai frowned as she looked at Martial Emperor Shiqi and asked, "Now, describe that stone tablet to me." Han Xuanai already had a guess about the mysterious stone tablet that could make people lose their mind and possess terrifying power. However, she did not dare to be 100% sure. If it's really the Devil Seal tablet, I'm afraid Brother Ling Tian is in trouble. Han Xuanai's heart skipped a beat when she asked Emperor Wu. She was worried. In the face of Han Xuanai's question, Emperor Wu did not dare to be negligent. He quickly described the characteristics of the stone tablet that he knew. It's strange. That stone tablet is missing a corner. It's really the Devil Seal tablet. After listening to Emperor Wu, Han Xuanai's expression turned grave. How can there be such a coincidence? The Devil Seal tablet is actually in Brother Ling Tian's hands? Han Xuanai still remembered. That year, she came to Cloud Continent with Qing Nu. Apart from the fact that she was here to relax and have fun, Qing Nu was here on her father's order to search for the Devil Seal tablet. This was because her father had received news that the Devil Seal tablet should be in Cloud Continent, the mortal continent. She originally thought that to Cloud Continent, she was only a passerby passing by. However, she did not expect to meet her brother Ling Tian and three little fellows with extraordinary innate talents here. Because of this, she formed an indissoluble bond with Cloud Continent. That year, Qing Nu spent a few years to search every corner of Cloud Continent, but she still couldn't find the Devil Seal tablet. I didn't expect it to be in Brother Ling Tian's hands. At this moment, Han Xuanai's feelings were very complicated. At the same time, she was worried about Duan Ling Tian. She knew very well how terrifying the Devil Seal tablet was. "You said my brother Ling Tian left the stone tablet behind and left?" Han Xuanai asked again. "Yes." Shiqi Emperor Wu did not dare to be negligent and quickly nodded. Not only did he not take the stone tablet with him, but he didn't even take his lover with him. "How can you prove that what you said earlier is true?" Han Xuanai stared at Shiqi Emperor Wu without blinking. Her eyes narrowed unconsciously as a cold gleam flashed in them. "I, Shiqi Emperor Wu, swear by the 99 heavenly tribulation. If I'm lying, I'm willing to be struck to death by the lightning punishment." Emperor Wu's heart trembled when he noticed the cold gleam in Han Xuanai's eyes. He hurriedly swore by the 99 heavenly tribulation. Boom, 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 boom. In just a blink of an eye, 9 claps of thunder resonated in the sky in response to Emperor Wu's oath. The 99 heavenly tribulation was the tribulation of oaths. If one swore by it, even a powerhouse like Emperor Wu could not go against it. Otherwise, he would be struck to death by the lightning punishment. Since Emperor Wu dared to swear by it, it meant he did not lie earlier. Duan Ling Tian had left behind the Devil Seal tablet. In the end, the Devil Seal tablet was stolen by his direct disciple, Zhou Yi, who secretly swapped it out for himself. Feng Tianwu was taken away by a powerhouse called Qihua. After swearing, Emperor Wu could not help but sigh in relief. Fortunately, he had foresight and did not lie. Otherwise, he would not have been able to get through the trial earlier. "You better pray that my brother Ling Tian is fine. Otherwise, I'll kill everyone in the Lost Stone Forest." Han Xuanai glanced at Emperor Wu coldly before she moved and disappeared before Emperor Wu's eyes at an extremely fast speed. From the beginning until the end, Emperor Wu did not see Han Xuanai's figure clearly. "It's just as I guessed. Her ability is even higher than that white-clad little girl." Emperor Wu secretly wiped his cold sweat. At the same time, he looked at the white-clad little girl standing nearby with an anxious expression on his face. He was afraid this little girl would not let this go easily. "Humph." As Little White snorted softly and left with Han Xuanai, Emperor Wu finally sighed in relief, as though he was relieved of a heavy burden. Soon after, Little White caught up with Han Xuanai, who had slowed down. She asked, "Sister Xuanai, he actually wanted to kill brother back then. Why didn't you kill him directly? Don't you think It's better to keep him alive and wait for Brother Ling Tian to take revenge on him? Han Xuanai said. Little White was suddenly enlightened. Then, she seemed to have recalled something and asked worriedly, "But what if Brother?" Little White did not finish her sentence, but it was obvious what she wanted to say. "If something really happens to Brother Ling Tian, I'll annihilate his entire Lost Stone Forest. No matter where Emperor Wu hides, I'll find him and kill him." Little White's words were like a fuse that completely ignited Han Xuanai, who was a barrel of gunpowder. "Brother will definitely be fine," Little White muttered. "I hope so too." Han Xuanai nodded, but her eyes were filled with worry. According to Emperor Wu's description, she could guess what her brother Ling Tian had gone through. Brother Ling Tian forcefully activated the soul remnant energy in the Devil Seal tablet into his body, and was devilified in one fell swoop. That's how he obtained extraordinary strength. However, after he's devilified, he'll lose his rationality. Now, I can only hope that this is his first time using the Devil Seal tablet. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome. This was what Han Xuanai was most worried about. Perhaps there would be some side effects when a person used the Devil Seal tablet for the first time, but it would not be fatal. However, if it was used repeatedly, the side effects would be fatal. Even if the person's body was still alive, it would only be an empty shell. An empty shell that was controlled by the soul remnant energy that came from the Devil Seal tablet. "Sister Xuanai, I heard you mention something about the Devil Seal tablet. Don't tell me the mysterious tablet that Emperor Wu mentioned is the Devil Seal tablet that you mentioned?" Soon after, Little White recalled Han Xuanai's muttering earlier. Although her voice was not loud, she still heard it. "That's right, it's the Devil Seal tablet." Han Xuanai nodded. "What's the Devil Seal tablet? How did it allow Brother to possess such powerful strength in such a short time? Moreover, the side effects seem to be quite severe." Little White had learned a lot from Emperor Wu's words. She could not help but ask curiously, "The Devil Seal tablet. It's one of the 10 Great Saint Weapons on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking in the Dao Martial Saint Land." Han Xuanai said. "What?" Little White was shocked when she heard that. It's said that the Saint Weapons on the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking in the Dao Martial Saint Land are all Super Saint weapons. They're extremely rare treasures. Ordinary people can roam the Dao Martial Saint Land with just one of them. That's just deifying them. No matter how strong a saint weapon is, if the person using it is too weak, it won't be able to bring out its full potential. However, apart from the Devil Seal tablet, the Super Saint weapons that can be ranked in the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking are indeed able to help a martial artist increase their offensive strength. Han Xuanai added, "Why is the Devil Seal tablet an exception? Isn't the Devil Seal tablet a Super Saint weapon as well?" Little White asked curiously. The reason the Devil Seal tablet can become a Super Saint weapon and be ranked in the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking is not because it boosts a martial artist's offensive strength. The offensive strength the Devil Seal tablet boosts a martial artist's offensive strength is far from many ordinary saint weapons. The reason it can become a Super Saint weapon and be ranked in the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking is because it has a shocking ability to suppress devil cultivators. Chapter 1247. The Devil Seal tablet had always been a legend in the Dao Martial Saint Land. It was also a variant in the 10 Great Saint Weapons ranking. If the Devil Seal tablet was used to deal with a devil cultivator, it could easily suppress the devil cultivator. However, if the Devil Seal tablet was used to deal with an ordinary martial or Dao cultivator, it was not as effective as using an ordinary saint weapon, since the Devil Seal tablet was not an offensive saint weapon. After Little White learned about the Devil Seal tablet's function from Han Xuanai, she could not help but exclaim in surprise. When she learned about the Devil Seal tablet's side effect, and how those who used it too many times would lose their consciousness, or even go crazy and become a walking corpse, she began to worry about Duan Lingtian. "Sister Xuanai, will Brother be all right?" Little White looked at Han Xuanai worriedly. Her big, watery eyes looked pitiful. "Don't worry, Brother Ling Tian is a good person. He'll be fine." Han Xuanai comforted her with a smile. However, although she was comforting Little White, she was not confident in her heart. This was because she did not know how many times her brother Ling Tian had used the Devil Seal tablet. If she knew that this was the third time her brother Ling Tian had used the Devil Seal tablet, she would not be so optimistic. The most important thing now is to find brother Ling Tian, Han Xuanai said. Little White nodded. Then, she and Han Xuanai headed in the direction Emperor Wu had told them that Duan Lingtian had left. They searched for Duan Lingtian, intending to find him. Currently, Duan Lingtian was, naturally, unaware that there were people who were worried about him and looking for him everywhere. Lingxian Peak. The selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers had arrived as scheduled. The selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers would be held in Lingxian Peak, on a spacious stone platform, halfway up Lingxian Peak. This vast stone platform was far from being comparable to the small stone platform where the residents stood. It occupied an extremely large area. Early in the morning, many people appeared in the air above the vast stone platform. They were either Emperor Wu's disciples or followers from Lingxian Peak, or those who had come to participate in the selection of Lingxian Peak's disciples and followers. Unknowingly, the originally noisy atmosphere had completely quieted down following the appearance of a figure. It's Senior Songting. Senior Songting is here. After a moment of silence, the scene became noisy again. Many of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers looked at the people in the distance with excitement. Their eyes were full of excitement, as if they had seen their idol. Songting? Who is Songting? It doesn't seem simple. Those who came to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers did not know who Songting was. Someone who can make a group of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers treat him so respectfully must have a high status. Don't tell me he's one of the 3 direct disciples of Emperor Wu in Lingxian Peak? When someone made a guess, it resonated with many people. It should be. However, although the group of people resonated with the guess, they could not help but ask the disciples and followers of Emperor Wu, who were not far away. It seemed like they would only feel at ease after they confirmed it. That's right. He's Songting, the second disciple of our Lingxian Peak's Emperor Wu. Moreover, senior brother Songting is not only Emperor Wu's direct disciple today, but he's also one of the 2 main judges for the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers that Lingxian Peak is holding today. Many of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers responded. Although they had already guessed it, when they learned about Songting's identity from the group of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, many of them were still amazed and even had looks of admiration on their faces. Emperor Wu's direct disciple. That was someone they had to look up to. When Songting appeared, there were 2 people following behind him like shadows. Lu Zhong. Duan Lingtian, who was standing in the crowd, recognized one of the people behind Songting with just a glance. It was Emperor Wu's disciple who had caused trouble for him before, but was stopped by Qiao Zhong. Lu Zhong was also the brother of the bandit leader he had killed before he came to Lingxian Peak. When Duan Lingtian killed the bandit leader, he did not know that the bandit leader had another identity. He was Emperor Wu's disciple. Naturally, even if he knew, he would not have shown mercy. When Duan Lingtian noticed Lu Zhong noticed him as well. When Lu Zhong noticed Duan Lingtian, his eyes were instantly dyed red. It was as though he had transformed into a ferocious beast that was hibernating in the dark, ready to attack, or even kill someone at any time. He's the one who killed Lu Yi. Although Songting did not deliberately look at Lu Zhong, it was as though he had eyes on the back of his head. He noticed that something was wrong with Lu Zhong, and immediately looked in the direction Lu Zhong was looking at. Soon, his eyes locked onto Duan Lingtian. Yes, he glared at Duan Lingtian, as though his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. It was as though he could not wait to swallow Duan Lingtian alive. However, Duan Lingtian did not pay any attention to Lu Zhong at that moment. He did not care about Lu Zhong at all. His gaze met Songting's, and it was as if they could create the most intense sparks from the collision. However, Duan Lingtian and Songting's eyes did not last long, because Songting quickly withdrew his eyes. It seemed that he did not care to look at Duan Lingtian, and did not care about Duan Lingtian at all. Emperor Wu's disciple? In Duan Lingtian's eyes, there was a strong desire to fight, a desire to fight against Song Ting. Unfortunately, Song Ting did not notice it. Senior Zhong'an. Senior Zhong'an. Not long after, a series of respectful greetings attracted Duan Lingtian's attention. Only now did Duan Lingtian notice that another young man, who looked to be in his 30s, had arrived nearby, while being escorted by two people. From the discussion among the group of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers, Duan Lingtian learned about the young man's identity. He was Zhong'an, the third direct disciple under Spirit Profound Emperor Wu's command. In the past 2 days, Duan Lingtian had also learned about the general situation in Lingxian Peak from Qiaozhong. He knew that Lingxian Peak was divided into 2 camps, and these 2 camps were led by the 2 direct disciples under Emperor Wu's command of Emperor Wu. Now he finally met the leaders of the 2 camps. Emperor Wu's second direct disciple Song Ting, Emperor Wu's third direct disciple Zhong'an. I originally thought that one of Emperor Wu's second and third direct disciples would be Yang Hui. Now it seems like I was wrong. A figure appeared in Duan Lingtian's mind again. The young man who had used his spiritual energy to wield the sword at the peak of Lingxian Peak was still vivid in his mind. Could it be? Yang Hui is the elusive martial emperor's eldest direct disciple, like martial emperor Lingxian that Qiaozhong mentioned? Chapter 1248. Duan Lingtian. Soon after, a familiar voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Without turning his head, Duan Lingtian could tell who the owner of the voice was. It was Nangong Yi, who had come to Lingxian Peak with him to participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers. However, there were 2 faint sounds of wind approaching him. Therefore, he could easily tell that it was not only Nangong Yi but Nangong Chen as well. You're here. Duan Lingtian nodded his head lightly. Duan Lingtian, did Lu Zhong look for you? After Nangong Yi came to Duan Lingtian's side, he could not help but look at Lu Zhong, who was standing behind Song Ting in the distance. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded his head in response to Nangong Yi's question. You won against him? Nangong Yi asked in surprise. We didn't fight. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Although Lu Zhong had looked for him, he did not attack him. Therefore, it did not matter whether he won or not. You didn't fight? This time, it was Nangong Yi's turn to be surprised. One should know that when Lu Zhong found him, he was furious. If it were not for the fact that he was here to participate in the selection of the martial emperor's disciples and followers, and that he was not the culprit, he would have definitely attacked him. However, Duan Lingtian was different. Lu Zhong's younger brother had died in the hands of Duan Lingtian. Logically, Lu Zhong would not let him go so easily. If you were to fight him now, would you be confident? Nangong Yi did not ask for the reason, but he was curious. Although Duan Lingtian had killed Lu Zhong's younger brother Lu Yi, who was a disciple of Lingxian Peak's Emperor Wu, Duan Lingtian had taken him by surprise. If Lu Yi had been prepared, Duan Lingtian would not have been able to kill him. After all, Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was too low. The boost from his spirit weapon was limited. Lu Yi had died because of his carelessness. If it was Duan Lingtian from half a year ago, Nangong Yi was certain he would not be able to defeat Lu Zhong, the disciple of Emperor Wu, who was said to be even more powerful than his younger brother Lu Yi. Among Emperor Wu's disciples from Lingxian Peak, his strength was ranked in the top 3. However, now that half a year had passed, he did not know how much Duan Lingtian's cultivation base had recovered, so he did not dare to jump to conclusions. After all, Duan Lingtian had only spent a month to recover his cultivation base, from the first-level core formation stage to the first-level void interpretation stage. Now that half a year had passed, how much had Duan Lingtian's cultivation base recovered? He didn't know about this. Confident, Duan Lingtian was stunned when he heard Nangong Yi's question. Then he smiled mysteriously. This made Nangong Yi even more curious. Why? Are you confident? Nangong Yi could not help but ask again. However, Duan Lingtian still did not answer him. It made him feel depressed. In the distance, Ling Xianpeike's Emperor Wu's second direct disciple, Song Ting, and Emperor Wu's third direct disciple, Zhong'an, had gathered together. This meant that the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers was about to begin. Song Ting and Zhong'an were the two main judges for the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers today. Naturally, other than the two judges, there was another group of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers today. The group of martial emperor's disciples acted as supervisors today to monitor the specific situation of the selection today. Third junior brother, it's been a long time. Song Ting smiled as he greeted Zhong'an. If one did not know better, one would think that he and Zhong'an were close brothers. Yes, it's been a long time. Second senior brother, Zhong'an replied indifferently. Zhong'an replied indifferently with a fake smile on his face. In the depths of their eyes, there was a hint of hostility. Since both of us are here, shall we begin the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers today? Song Ting asked. Let's begin. Zhong'an nodded. At the same time, he looked around and announced in a loud voice. All martial artists who are participating in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers today, please descend to the stone platform below. The first selection will begin in 15 minutes. As soon as Zhong'an's words echoed in the air, the group of people began to descend one after another. They landed on the vast stone platform below like dumplings and stood there. In the beginning, Duan Lingtian and Nangong did not join in the fun. It was only when there were fewer people descending that they stepped on the air and landed on the side of the stone platform. They waited for the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers to begin. Nangong Chen, are they your companions? Not long after Duan Lingtian and the other two landed, a voice that deserved a beating sounded in a timely manner. The tone was filled with ridicule. A middle-aged man in a silver robe appeared in front of Duan Lingtian, and the other two in just a blink of an eye. From the beginning until the end, he did not look at Nangong Chen at all. Instead, he stared at Duan Lingtian and Nangong Yi intently. I don't think I've seen them before. Does this mean their cultivation base isn't even at the 7th level martial monarch stage? The silver-robed middle-aged man had a mocking smile on his face when he reached the end of his sentence. Based on his words, it was obvious he was someone who had been cultivating at the same place as Nangong Chen for the past 6 months. When Duan Lingtian and the other two first arrived at Ling Xianpeike, they were assigned to different places to cultivate. For example, Duan Lingtian was assigned to one place because his cultivation base was below the 4th level martial monarch stage. Nangong Yi's cultivation base was above the 4th level martial monarch stage and below the 7th level martial monarch stage. He was assigned to another place. Nangong Chen's cultivation base was above the 7th level martial monarch stage. The place he was assigned to was different from Duan Lingtian and Nangong Yi. Since the silver-robed middle-aged man was assigned to the same place as Nangong Chen, it meant he was above the 7th level martial monarch stage 6 months ago. Moreover, since he dared to disregard Nangong Chen and provoke Duan Lingtian and Nangong Yi in front of Nangong Chen, it meant he was not afraid of Nangong Chen. His strength was on par with Nangong Chen at the very least. He might even be stronger than Nangong Chen. Scram! Nangong Chen, who had a cold expression on his face, shouted. It was rare for him to speak. As Nangong Chen shouted, the silver-robed middle-aged man's face turned completely grave. He glared at Nangong Chen and said fiercely, Nangong Chen, I hope your two companions don't meet me in the selection later on. Otherwise, I'll make sure they die a horrible death. When the silver-robed middle-aged man reached the end of his sentence, his eyes gleamed fiercely, as though he was about to devour someone. You'll have to have the ability to make sure we die a horrible death first. Nangong Yi, who did not know what was going on, sneered when he heard the silver-robed middle-aged man's threat. Duan Lingtian was the only one who did not speak from the beginning until the end. He merely glanced at the silver-robed middle-aged man coldly, before retracting his gaze. A hint of killing intent that was difficult to detect flashed in the depth of his eyes. You'll find out very soon whether I have the ability or not. Even Nangong Chen doesn't dare to say that he can defeat me. You're just a kid who hasn't even stepped into the 7th level martial monarch stage. It'll be as easy as stepping on an ant for me to kill you. The silver-robed middle-aged man continued to mock Nangong Yi when he heard his words. Then he left under Nangong Yi's furious gaze and stood at the side. Nangong Chen, you can't defeat him? Nangong Yi retracted his gaze and immediately looked at Nangong Chen as he asked. It's a tie. Nangong Chen replied calmly. He was a man of few words. No wonder he's so arrogant to challenge you, me, and Duan Lingtian. Nangong Yi snorted. However, it's one thing for him to challenge you and me, but he actually dares to challenge Duan Lingtian. He's really courting death. Nangong Yi looked at Duan Lingtian when he reached the end of his sentence. However, he noticed that Duan Lingtian had a calm expression on his face. It was as though he was not enraged by the silver-robed middle-aged man's provocation. Nangong Yi was instantly disappointed. To Duan Lingtian, the silver-robed middle-aged man's incident was merely a small interlude. He completely tossed it to the back of his mind after a short while. A quarter of an hour passed very quickly. 15 minutes have passed. The first round of selection is about to begin. I wonder what the first round of selection is going to be. We'll find out soon enough. Many people whispered among themselves. They were filled with anticipation and anxiety toward the upcoming selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers. There were no more than 10 people, including Duan Lingtian, who could remain calm. Even Nangong Yi had a grave expression on his face. He was vigilant as he waited for the first round of selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers to begin. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Song Ting and Zhong'an flew out at the same time. In just a short while they were above Duan Lingtian and the others. They stood there without saying a word for a long time. What's going on? What's going on? Just when the crowd was puzzled, Song Ting and Zhong'an finally made their moves. Their bodies trembled slightly as a majestic aura surged out of their bodies. The aura that belonged to a powerhouse at the peak of the martial monarch stage was completely released as it descended menacingly on Duan Lingtian and the others. When the aura of 2 peak martial royal powerhouses overlapped, it was no longer as simple as 1 + 1. In the area that was shrouded by the aura, other than Duan Lingtian and a few dozen people, the others were on the verge of collapsing. Boom! After a short while, someone could no longer support himself and fell on his buttocks. His face was ashen. Boom! 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 Following that, more and more people fell. The people who fell first were those who had been cultivating in the same place as Duan Lingtian for the past 6 months. They were all martial artists below the 4th level martial monarch stage. Under the aura of 2 peak martial royal powerhouses, they could not support themselves at all. Soon after, other than Duan Lingtian, all the people who had been cultivating in the same place as Duan Lingtian for the past 6 months fell and were eliminated. Humph, a bunch of trash. Song Ting snorted coldly and said disdainfully as he watched the scene below him from the sky. Our Lingxian Peak doesn't have any strict requirements for those who participate in the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers this time. Otherwise, they wouldn't be qualified to come. However, it turns out that even if they came, they were just overestimating themselves, Zhong'an said calmly. Zhong'an said plainly. He, who was also looking down, did not seem to be surprised by this. You want to become a martial emperor's disciple or follower of our Lingxian Peak with such little strength. They're overestimating themselves. Chapter 1249. All the martial artists below the 4th level martial monarch stage instantly fell to the ground and could no longer stand up. As for the remaining martial artists above the 4th level martial monarch stage, even the weakest among them could barely withstand Song Ting and Zhong'an's aura. Naturally, they were in a sorry state. After a while, Song Ting and Zhong'an withdrew their aura. Song Ting glanced at the people on the ground and shouted coldly, Throw this group of trash out. Do they really think anyone can enter Lingxian Peak? The moment Song Ting's words left his mouth, the group of Emperor Wu's followers who had been waiting for a long time made their moves and took the people on the ground away. At once, only a group of people with extraordinary strength, including Duan Lingtian, were left on the vast stone platform. The first round of selection has ended. The second round of selection will begin immediately. Zhong'an looked down at the people who passed the first round of selection, including Duan Lingtian, and said slowly. Subsequently, he lifted his hand and shot out a beam of origin energy into the air. Suddenly, the void trembled, and circles of ripples spread out. It was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, and circles of ripples spread out continuously. Inscription formation. At the same time, everyone present on the scene sensed the rich aura of an inscription formation. They knew Zhong and had activated an inscription formation. Among the people standing on the vast stone platform, those who had passed the first round of selection to participate in the selection of the martial emperor's disciples and followers, there were quite a few people, including Duan Lingtian, who were not surprised. This was because they had long discovered that there was a hidden inscription formation here. This inscription formation was extraordinary. It was personally set up by an inscription master, who was at least at the Emperor Wu's level. If they were not inscription masters themselves, they would not have noticed it. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the inscription formation was activated. A translucent cylinder appeared in the air. It was hollowed out from top to bottom, so one could pass through it at will. The cylinder was about 100 meters long. The space inside could accommodate about 10 adults at the same level. Any more and it would seem cramped. Apart from that, the translucent cylinder was divided into 7 colors. It was the 7 colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, blue, and purple. Gravity ladder formation. The moment he saw the cylinder, Duan Lingtian recognized the inscription formation. This inscription formation was not unfamiliar to him. There were records of this inscription formation in his mind. The gravity ladder formation was an inscription formation that could only be inscribed and set up by an inscription master at the Emperor Wu realm or above. It was not an offensive or defensive inscription formation. If one really wanted to give it a position, it could only be considered as an auxiliary inscription formation. The gravitational stairs formation was mainly set up with a certain number of earth profundity fragments, a large number of supreme great origin stones, and some other materials. Once it was activated, it would form a gravitational stairs. The cylindrical object that appeared in front of everyone was a gravitational ladder. From bottom to top, there were 7 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. The 7 colors of the rainbow represented the different degrees of gravity in the gravitational stairs. Without a certain level of strength, it was impossible to climb the gravitational stairs from the bottom up. That was because the higher one went in the gravitational stairs, the more terrifying the gravity became. This is the gravitational stairs formation. At this moment, Zhong'an began to introduce the gravitational stairs formation. What he introduced was the same as what Duan Lingtian knew from the memories in his mind. There was no difference at all. So, this is the legendary gravitational stairs formation. It's said that only the elites at the martial monarch stage can pass through the gravitational stairs, formed by the gravitational stairs formation. It's very difficult for ordinary martial monarch stage martial artists to pass through it. I've heard about it as well. However, as Lingxian Peak's Emperor Wu's disciples, we'll definitely be able to pass through it. Let alone Emperor Wu's disciples. Even Emperor Wu's followers like us can pass through it easily. The group of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers discussed among themselves. They were confident in their own strength. Naturally, this was also because they had heard of the gravitational stairs formation before. The gravitational stairs formation. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to pass through it without a cultivation base at the 7th level martial monarch stage or above. Many people sighed. That's not necessarily true. Perhaps a 6th level martial monarch stage martial artist can pass through the gravitational stairs with his profundities that far exceed his cultivation base? That's possible as well. The group of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers looked at Duan Lingtian and the others with interest. They looked forward to seeing Duan Lingtian and the others enter the gravitational stairs. They wanted to see how many people could pass through the gravitational stairs. It's very difficult for those below the 7th level martial monarch stage to pass through the gravitational stairs formation. Nan Gongyi looked at the gravitational stairs in the air with a solemn expression. However, there was a gleam of eagerness in the depth of his eyes. Usually, it's very difficult for martial artists below the 7th level martial monarch stage to pass through it. However, if one has a strong will and has comprehended a profundity that surpasses one's cultivation base, there's still a chance for them to pass through it. Duan Lingtian said. There was a detailed record of the gravitational stairs formation in his memory. He believed that as long as his cultivation base broke through to the Emperor Wu stage, coupled with the familiar yet unfamiliar information in his memory, he would be able to inscribe and set up the gravitational stairs formation himself, if he was given sufficient materials. The gravitational stairs is the second round of selection for all of you today. Only those who pass through it will advance to the next round of selection. Zhong'an looked at Duan Lingtian and the others and continued to say, those who advance to the next round of selection will be considered as Emperor Wu's followers in Lingxian Peak. Even if they can't pass through the third round of selection, they can still stay in Lingxian Peak as Emperor Wu's followers, Song Ting said. Duan Lingtian nodded. At once, apart from Duan Lingtian, the eyes of the people on the vast stone platform lit up. Even Nangong Chun, who had a cold expression and was a man of few words, was no exception. Little E, I'll avenge you very soon. You can temporarily stop on the road to hell and wait for your enemy to kill you. At that time, you can taunt him. In the distance, Lu Zhong glared at Duan Lingtian with hatred. If it was not for the fact that he did not dare to disrupt the selection of Emperor Wu's disciples and followers today, he would have killed the enemy who killed his younger brother. In his opinion, it would not be long before he could avenge his younger brother with his own hands. There should be a good show to watch soon. On the other side, an old man stood there. His gaze landed on Lu Zhong as a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Xiao Zhong, what's the good show? Another old man next to the old man asked curiously. You'll find out soon enough. The old man called Xiao Zhong smiled faintly. Xiao Zhong was the old man who brought Duan Lingtian to the cultivation place 6 months ago. At that time, he was the one who stopped Lu Zhong when he looked for trouble with Duan Lingtian. He was also Emperor Wu's disciple in Lingxian Peak. However, unlike Lu Zhong, he was on the side of Zhong'an, the third direct disciple of Emperor Wu. As long as I pass this round of selection, I'll be able to become Emperor Wu's follower? On the vast stone platform, many people's eyes lit up. They knew their limits. With their current strength, it was almost impossible for them to become Emperor Wu's disciple. Therefore, they could only settle for the next best thing, which was to become Emperor Wu's follower. As long as they became Emperor Wu's follower, it meant that they would be able to stay in Lingxian Peak and enjoy the cultivation resources there. Moreover, as long as they had sufficient strength in the future, Emperor Wu's follower would have a chance to be promoted to Emperor Wu's disciple. They might even be chosen by Emperor Wu to become Emperor Wu's direct disciple. Now, the second round of selection will begin. 10 people will form a group and enter from the bottom of the gravitational stairs. Those who come out from the top will be considered to have passed the second round of selection. Song Ting's voice resonated in the air again. As soon as Song Ting's voice left his mouth, the group of people, including Duan Lingtian, did not move at all. At this moment, nobody was willing to stand out and be the guinea pig. What? Are all of you going to forfeit? Song Ting asked with a frown when he saw this. At this moment, some people finally moved. They stepped into the air sparsely. After more than 10 breaths, they finally gathered 10 people and stood at the bottom of the gravitational stairs. Duan Lingtian glanced at them and realized none of them were above the 7th level martial monarch stage. It'll be difficult for these people to pass the gravitational stairs, he thought to himself. He was familiar with the gravitational stairs formation. Naturally, he was familiar with the gravitational stairs as well. It was almost impossible for martial artists below the 7th level martial monarch stage to pass the gravitational stairs. Naturally, this only applied to martial artists below the 7th level martial monarch stage. For martial artists below the 7th level martial monarch stage, it was not difficult for them to pass the gravitational stairs as long as their comprehension of profundity was strong and their overall strength was strong. Just like him now. Although he was not a martial artist above the 7th level martial monarch stage, it was not difficult for him to pass the gravitational stairs due to the strength of his comprehension of profundity. Go in. Song Ting's expression softened when he saw the 10 people had arrived at the bottom of the gravitational stairs. He said calmly to the 10 people at the entrance of the gravitational stairs. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The 10 people standing at the entrance of the gravitational stairs immediately made their moves and rushed into the gravitational stairs. Their lightning-like figures slowed down as soon as they entered the gravitational stairs. The higher the gravitational stairs, the closer it was to the purple part, the stronger the gravity. On the other hand, the lower it was to the red part, the weaker the gravity was. The 10 people exerted all their strength and forced their way into the gravitational stairs. Although their speed gradually slowed down, they still passed through the red part, orange part, yellow part, and green part. They only slowed down when they reached the green part. It seemed like it was extremely difficult for them to continue going up. All 10 of them were stuck at the green part of the gravitational stairs. Chapter 1250. The people on the scene stared at the 10 people on the gravitational stairs without blinking. After the 10 of them arrived at the green section of the gravitational stairs, every step they took was extremely difficult. Some of them might not even make it through. That person's almost there. Soon after, the people on the scene noticed that one of them was so close to making it to the blue section of the gravitational stairs. Once he made it to the blue section, he would only need to make it to the purple section to pass the gravitational stairs. The reason this person was so close to making it to the green section was that not only did he unleash all of his origin energy and profundities, but he even took out his spirit weapon to resist the strong gravity. He raised both of his hands above his head and held a spirit sword tightly. His body was filled with origin energy from many profundities. It made him look like a giant sword. The tip of the sword was pointing upwards. It was trying its best to divert the endless gravity from the gravitational stairs to the surroundings to reduce the pressure on him. Whoosh! At the same time, he seized the opportunity to soar into the sky and made it to the blue section of the gravitational stairs. Many people's eyes lit up when they thought this person had a chance of making it to the gravitational stairs. Boom! An even more powerful gravity suddenly surged out of the blue section of the gravitational stairs and slammed that person down, causing him to fall from the sky like an arrow. Barf! Under the watchful eyes of the others, this person only managed to spit out a mouthful of blood before he was slammed out of the gravitational stairs. He had lost the opportunity to become Emperor Wu's disciple or follower. I was careless. After he was slammed out of the gravitational stairs, he sighed and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth before he left dejectedly. He was overjoyed when he made it to the blue section of the gravitational stairs. That was why he was slammed out of the gravitational stairs. Otherwise, even if he could not make it to the purple section of the gravitational stairs, he would not be in such a wretched state. However, although he was eliminated by the gravitational stairs, he had provided experience for the people who came after him. They could use their spirit weapons to resist the endless gravity in the gravitational stairs. The remaining 9 people also took out their spirit weapons one after another. With the help of their spirit weapons, they successfully made it to the blue section of the gravitational stairs. Unlike the person who was careless earlier, they made it to the blue section step by step. Duan Lingtian, they've already reached the blue section. Do you think they have a chance to reach the purple section and pass the gravitational stairs? A voice suddenly sounded in Duan Lingtian's ears. It was Nan Gongyi asking him. It's impossible for them to pass the gravitational stairs. As for reaching the purple section, perhaps one of them can. Duan Lingtian, who was also paying attention to the situation inside the gravitational stairs, responded promptly after hearing Nan Gongyi's question. Among the remaining 9 people, one of them was quite powerful. He was one of the best among the LV6 martial royal realm martial artists. Only one person can reach the purple section. No one can pass the gravitational stairs. Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Nan Gongyi's face turned ugly. He had an impression of the 10 people who had entered the gravitational stairs. They were all people who had cultivated in the same place as him for the past 6 months. They were all above the 4th level martial monarch stage and below the 7th level martial monarch stage. Among these people, the strongest ones were even stronger than him. Does this mean I have no chance of passing the gravitational stairs? At the same time, a hint of disappointment could be seen in the depth of Nan Gongyi's eyes. A moment later, another person was thrown out of the gravitational stairs. This person wanted to rely on the spirit weapon in his hand to force his way to the purple section of the gravitational stairs. In the end, as soon as the spirit weapon in his hand touched the purple section, it triggered a stronger gravitational force and sent him flying. Sigh. After he was sent flying out of the gravitational stairs, he sighed and left in a daze. As time went by, more and more people were eliminated. In the end, only one person was left. It was also someone Duan Lingtian had high hopes for. This person relied on the spirit weapon in his hand to force his way into the purple section of the gravitational stairs. Just when many people thought he was going to pass the gravitational stairs, he was blasted down and crashed onto the vast stone platform with a loud bang. When he stood up again, his body was covered in blood. He was in a wretched state. I advise all of you not to overestimate yourselves if you don't have a cultivation base above the 7th level martial monarch stage. Before he left, he looked at the people standing on the vast stone platform and said. His words caused many people to feel gloomy. Apart from Duan Lingtian, these people, including Nan Gongyi, had yet to enter the 7th level martial monarch stage. Without a cultivation base above the 7th level martial monarch stage, how dare you dream of becoming Emperor Wu's disciple and follower of Emperor Wu from Lingxian Peak? You're really overestimating yourselves. At this moment, a disdainful low snort broke the silence on the vast stone platform. It was the silver-robed middle-aged man who had provoked Duan Lingtian, and the other two. He had a mocking smile on his face. What a stench! Whose mouth is so smelly? Duan Lingtian said at a speed that was neither fast nor slow. Many people, including Nan Gongyi, were enraged. Pfft! Ha ha ha! It's indeed smelly. I can smell it too. After a moment of silence, many people regained their senses and could not help but laugh. The group of martial artists, including Nan Gongyi, whose cultivation base was below the 7th level martial monarch stage, laughed along with Duan Lingtian's words as they vented their anger to their heart's content. Boy, you're seeking death. The silver-robed middle-aged man finally regained his senses and glared at Duan Lingtian. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. If it were not for the fact that he was not allowed to be presumptuous in this place, he would have killed this purple-clad young man immediately to warn others of the consequences of offending him. It smells even worse. Nan Gongyi purposely pinched his nose and said in a strange tone, You two brats. Follow me into the gravitational stairs if you have the guts. I'll let you know that ants like you won't be able to pass the second round of the gravitational stairs. While the silver-robed middle-aged man glared at Nan Gongyi, he looked at Duan Lingtian and provoked him. Nan Gongyi's face darkened when he heard this. He really did not have the confidence to pass the gravitational stairs. In his heart, he was already prepared to be eliminated. However, he really did not know how to refute the silver-robed middle-aged man's provocation. You mean, you can pass the gravitational stairs? Pass the second round of the selection? At this moment, Duan Lingtian looked at the silver-robed middle-aged man and asked calmly. Of course. The silver-robed middle-aged man said as a matter of course. Looks like you're very confident. Duan Lingtian looked at the silver-robed middle-aged man deeply, before he looked at Nangong Yi and smiled. Since he's so confident, let's play with him then. Alright. Although Nangong Yi did not know what Duan Lingtian was up to, he still agreed to it. In his opinion, although he did not have enough strength to pass the gravitational stairs, it was not difficult for Duan Lingtian to pass the gravitational stairs with his strength. I'll go as well, Nangong Chen said calmly. Nangong Chen, you'll soon see your two companions being eliminated by the gravitational stairs. Ants who haven't even entered the 7th level martial monarch stage dare to challenge the gravitational stairs? You're overestimating yourself. As the silver-robed middle-aged man rose into the air, he looked at Nangong Chen and mocked him to his heart's content. Since you're so confident, do you dare to make a bet with me? Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes and asked in a provocative tone. What bet? The silver-robed middle-aged man snorted. Let's bet if the three of us, and you can pass the gravitational stairs, and pass the second round of the selection. Duan Lingtian said calmly. What bet? What bet? The silver-robed middle-aged man did not want to be at a disadvantage in terms of aura. He stared at Duan Lingtian and asked with a sneer. Let's bet our lives. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes as a cold gleam flashed across them. Bet our lives. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, the entire place was in an uproar. Even the two direct disciples of Emperor Wu, Song Ting and Zhong'an, had their eyes on Duan Lingtian. Interesting. Zhong'an looked at Duan Lingtian with interest and said with a smile, I like this kid. Humph. Unlike Zhong'an, Song Ting snorted coldly. It was obvious he recognized Duan Lingtian as the person who killed Lu Yi, Lu Zhong's disciple. When the silver-robed middle-aged man heard Duan Lingtian's words, he was stunned. After a long while, he finally returned to his senses when he sensed everyone's eyes on him. He looked at Duan Lingtian and asked in a deep voice, How do you want to bet? Until now, he was still unwilling to be at a disadvantage in terms of aura. We'll each swear on the tribulation oath, the 99 heavenly tribulation, that if any one of us fails to pass the gravitational stairs, or if you pass the gravitational stairs, I'll be killed by the lightning punishment from the 99 heavenly tribulation. Duan Lingtian looked at the silver-robed middle-aged man and said word by word. On the other hand, if the three of us pass the gravitational stairs and you fail to pass the gravitational stairs, you'll be killed by the lightning punishment from the 99 heavenly tribulation. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, the entire place fell silent. Has this purple-clad young man gone mad? When people regained their senses one after another, they could not help but whisper among themselves. All of them thought Duan Lingtian had gone mad. According to Duan Lingtian's words, if he, Nangong Chen, and Nangong Yi failed to pass the gravitational stairs, he would die. Even if all of them passed the gravitational stairs, as long as the silver-robed middle-aged man passed the gravitational stairs, he would still die. If all three of them passed the gravitational stairs, and the silver-robed middle-aged man failed, he would die. Are you sure you want to bet like this? After listening to Duan Lingtian's words, the silver-robed middle-aged man looked at Duan Lingtian mockingly and asked with a smirk on his face. In his opinion, the purple-clad young man before him was digging his own grave. Do you dare? Duan Lingtian asked nonchalantly. Do you dare? The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, everyone shifted their attention to the silver-robed middle-aged man. He became the center of attention again. Interesting, interesting. Zhong'an smiled brilliantly. Song Ting, who was standing at the side, narrowed his eyes as he stared at the purple-clad figure thoughtfully. Why wouldn't I dare? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.